All right, well, we're going to start this off. Today I got Jim Braun. He came on here because he's a Boeing whistleblower.
Well, I'm not going to be on here any longer.
Yeah.
This will be the last one. Jesus.
I had to corner you a little bit because it's...
Yep.
Yeah, so he's a Boeing whistleblower. He's here to come and tell about some of the issues he's seen in the assembly lines and stuff. But no, he works at TBM now. He's bounced around to a couple very cool facilities. I don't even know if he's actually allowed to talk about them.
I can.
If you want to say what you did before TBM,
yeah,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I worked for Raytheon for 10 years going on.
So,
I had a brief stint where I worked at Rail Street for a bit, but that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Raytheon, one of the largest military contractors in the world.
Fairly large defense, 173,000 people.
That's quite a few.
Yeah.
So you're managing things at Raytheon, doing cool secret things that you don't tell me.
I had a group of people at all of our sites, so pretty much all of our sites, and we were in charge of really like scheduling and what we could and couldn't build, and with that comes, you know, traveling around quite a bit and going to see different cool things and meeting customers and, you know.
But you started as an engineer at Raytheon, right?
I actually started as an assembler on the floor to get my foot in the door. So, yeah, I started doing assembly work there, and that was kind of at the time, Raytheon had a internal and external hire setup. So it was harder to get hired externally because they always wanted to promote internal first.
Yeah.
So I got in and I did the assembly work for like 6 months, and then I went into production control.
Interesting.
So from production control is kind of where I fell in love with business. So I kind of just kept rolling with that, and from that came different spots, you know, learning inside and out about assembly line work and, you know, smart machines and things like that.
Yeah, because once you have all your clearances and stuff, I guess it's so much easier to be like, oh, we'll just keep pushing the guy that, not that you weren't qualified, but it's so much more of a no-brainer to keep the guys that are already in there elevating.
Correct. And like, you know, like a lot of it is like they know your kind of work ethic, right? Like it's kind of like an inside secret, right? Like it's your inside door in. Like they already know how you work. They know what you want to do. They know like, oh, you know, like we're in alignment with how we want to run the business. You now know more about the business, you know, from that perspective.
And your dad did similar things, and I've always tried to harass him about
So
every time I'm with your dad, I'm like, so what are you going to tell me that was cool?
Yeah, Dad has really cool stories because so I was Raytheon SAS at the time, which is Space and Airborne Systems. Dad was RMS, which is Raytheon Missile Systems. So that's out of Tucson. They were almost run like two separate companies.
And in like the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, he did. He retired from there with like 38 years or 40 years service, which he started. I mean, they got bought up, but he worked for Hughes Aircraft first. And then Hughes got bought up when he was in California, I believe.
Interesting.
So he was a senior field quality engineer. So he would go out and like do like a proof of concept, destructive testing, you know, watch things get put on things, I guess.
I know every time I talk to him, I'm like, so what did you see out in Arizona? You know, where did you out in the desert? What was going on out there?
I mean, he's been in the middle of Brazil, you know, like out in the middle of the forest doing installations or monitoring installations. He used to cover the East Coast of the United States and then all of Europe. So, you know, even down to Israel and stuff like that. So like he would travel, you know, he would go to Europe like once a month at least, 2 week stints at a time.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like he has a lot of really cool stories.
I know. I've touched on them a little bit with him, and it's always one of those weird things. You don't know how much somebody's willing to share or comfortable to share or allowed to share.
He loves talking. Like I mean, like if you get with him, like he will tell a bunch of stories. Whether the details of those stories he can go into is, you know, up to him at that point because he was very clearanced. So, you know, he did a lot of really cool things, you know. It was just, it's weird saying like, oh, a lot of cool things. Like he did this, did that without like telling details. But like, that's just how it was. Like, that's how it was when I grew up.
Because, you know, you think about people like that and you're like, oh, he's like in the military. But like he was just private contractor that was doing crazier things.
Yeah. I mean, he's gotten, you know, escorted around, you know, like there's a lot of really cool. You know, helicoptered in and out of places, been on military jets.
You would never think this when you talk to your dad too, because he's just kind of like laughing and hanging out.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, he is just a normal guy. But like, I would say he's so seasoned to it that like, he's just very natural. You know, like it just comes off as like it's just a normal conversation. But you know, a lot of the times, like people ask, like, "Oh, what does your dad do?" And it's like, "Oh, well, he's a quality engineer and stuff like that." And you're like, "Oh, cool," and then like they'll get to know you, and then like they'll come out with a story that's like, "Oh, like this. I have a Sidewinder missile hub that has four folded wings on it. That was a reject from one of our suppliers, and they ended up giving it to my dad.
Okay,
and I've had it forever. I should have brought it in actually, but it's cool. I mean, it's got the smallest defect, and it's just like no." Can't use it, no good, but it's a full hub where it could be assembled. Like it's pretty legit.
Yeah,
they had to damage it.
They would be a little protective of that.
Yeah, they had to damage it obviously to like before it left to make sure that you couldn't use it again. But it looks usable. It's just not.
That stuff is just so interesting to me. You know that because we've talked very extensively about the backsides of this stuff, and it's just there's so much. That's why it's so interesting because it's not like. Like a business is like, a couple $1 million business, but then you talk about like this next level of military contracting where it's like millions of dollars are just like thrown in the trash because of like a defect.
Yeah.
Like a slight crack or a dent or something. And it's like, this isn't up to standard to kill someone. Like, this
is going to explode, but not this one.
It's not up to our standard to be dropped in the desert.
What I thought was crazy is that I tell people, like, most people are like, oh my God, they make so much money or they have so much money and stuff like that. I'm like, if you want to know something really impressive, you should see how much stuff we scrap or how much money we can throw away by just working on projects or like engineering hours. Yeah. Like, it's easily, like I've told you before, like we had this one fixture that our program manager at the time used to call it our Cadillac because it took 3 engineers, like 70-something hours or whatever it was, or 130 hours, and it was like a $70,000 or $80,000 fixture that was used to literally spin something over just to do a FOD check. Yeah. And it was just like the simplest thing ever, and you're like, we could have outsourced that. Somebody could have made it for like $5,000 and we would have been fine.
But you had to make it in-house.
But instead we made it in-house, and we outsourced some of the processes, but like, that was it.
There's such a mystery world, and it's weird because they're somewhat local too. Yeah. But so is like Honeywell Garrett, which is also huge. Like there's a good amount of military contracting right in Tampa.
There's So you have Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, you have DRS, like Honeywell. Mm-hmm. There's even more places that do manufacturing for all of these. So like a lot of the time people don't understand like the amount of business that other companies get because of these jobs. Yeah. You can't send 2 products that made up together to the same supplier.
You can't send 2 products that made up together.
So like if you need to build an assembly, right, you've got 30 parts that all go together. That company can only get so many of that part so that they can't create the whole thing. They only get sectioned out drawings to make sure that they're not able to.
So it's kind of just compartmental. I can't get the word.
Yeah.
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah. Correct.
Where each person gets a small part of it so that nobody can put it all together and nobody knows the full ins and outs.
And that's honestly a lot of reason why like cost. Like people always say like, oh my God, those companies make so much money and stuff like that. The regulation behind it that the government puts in place is why you spend so much money. Like most of the time you can only make like 20-ish%.
Well, they were saying like each Javelin missile, singular missile is $200,000. Yeah. Not the system that launches it, not anything along that, not the transportation of
logistics.
Each singular missile to use.
Yeah, I believe that whole. I mean, I would think it'd be more. Like we've blown up. Like there's missiles that cost way more than that. Yeah. Absorbently more.
The amount of tax dollars, like the amount of years of tax dollars like an average citizen has to pay for one Javelin missile is just an unfathomable thing to think about.
At the same time, like when you put it like perspective, like what's someone's life worth? And then you're like, okay, well, like if it's just money, you can always make more money. The taxpayers will always give you more money. I mean, we waste more money elsewhere than anything.
They will always give you more.
It's always given.
Yeah, they will always.
Yeah.
optionally give you more money.
You just got your home reassessed, so you know your tax value is a little bit more now.
Exactly. Yeah. There's always that faucet that will open back up. It's just such a crazy world. And then like then you have to go to like machining like at TBM where it's like, oh, like, you know, scrapping product actually matters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like,
well, what's also like the other thing that's really so big business is great. Big corporations, there's a place and need for them. Small businesses, you have to have them, right? And like getting like I couldn't tell you when I was at Raytheon, like I could see the end product, but a majority of the people I would never even lay eyes on it. They build a certain assembly, it goes on a rack. That rack moves on throughout the site. It might go to 7 different Raytheon facilities to be built before you see an end item.
Yeah.
Right? And then it gets sold off, and that might not even go. Most of the time it'll go to a depot or something like that because like that's where their final assembly is because the military has to assemble, you know, if it's a rocket or a missile, you know, like they're in charge of an explosive at that point. Like there's no, like we're not shipping out active explosives, you know, like out of your plant. You know
they're
what
not
I mean?
just in Tampa.
Yeah, but like to make it full circle, like seeing the end product and being involved and being like right there and like seeing those guys are so motivated and like really want to like push boundaries. Like you say, oh, well, you know, maybe it's just brakes or something like that. But like the technology, the passion people have, like you get to see that right away. So like, and if you want to make a change, that change happens fast. It's not like a 3, 6, sometimes, you know, 2-year change process, you know, in order to get like, oh, I got to go to the customer, get a contract mod. Contract mod comes through if the customer wants to approve it.
Well, like it's an interesting thing because when you make brakes, worst case scenario is someone dies. When you work at Raytheon, best case scenario.
Nobody's dying with our brakes. I'm telling you that right now.
Well, that's what I mean.
Most of the time, we're actually saving lives with our brakes.
And that's the flip side. Yeah. It's a very interesting parallel there.
Tough break.
Sorry, Raytheon. I mean,
destruction is your goal.
Secret, though.
We're creating peace. What do you mean?
Exactly.
Creating
that's what
peace.
It is. Yeah.
With war.
Well, it's interesting to think too because you know people are like, well, civilians shouldn't own nuclear weapons. It's like, well, these are civilian-owned companies that do own the nuclear weapons.
Some
of them manage them
to a point. Some of them.
Lockheed has possession of probably more than the U.S. military.
Think so?
There's a good chance they're on more Lockheed planes that they have control.
The planes don't go out the door with them on there.
Yeah, but they have.
They probably have more access.
Yes,
I would say that.
That would probably make more sense.
Because like they have to do testing. You know, like there is proof of concept testing that has to happen.
I would imagine there's Lockheed guys at these bases.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's Raytheon, Lockheed, Boeing. There's everyone.
Yeah,
like they have to be there. You know, like a lot of them are doing it almost like a CYA, right? Save your ass, because you have to witness whatever's happening to make sure somebody doesn't do the install wrong or somebody doesn't where they mismanage it to a way that will cause a failure.
Yeah, you know? Kind of checks and
yeah, and a lot of it's part of contracts. Like even though you're selling it to the military doesn't want to install it on their ship. Like. The military does do the install, but they're guided.
I was going to say, you can't just be like, here you go.
Yeah.
And just like walk away. Like,
no.
They'd be like, well, what do I do with this?
Correct.
How do I put this in?
Shipyards build the ships, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, like, there's a whole nother aspect to this where the military is actually doing installs.
I was just thinking about that too, like with these battleships. Like a battleship rolls out and then like the Navy just puts a bunch of people on it. It's like, well, they also have to know how to run this ship. It's not like they just... Yeah, there's a whole level there. I mean, you look at like submarines and stuff; they're rolling out brand new ones all the time, and it's like the person that runs it doesn't necessarily know, like the same as the guy that built it.
No. I mean, well, they're not the guy that built it, but the person that runs it probably knows the most about. I would say the culmination of everything.
Yeah,
because they're in charge of it. Like that's theirs, you know. So like, there's people in command and stuff like that, but like I would guess that a lot of the times whoever the captain of the ship is has to sign off when something's done. Like if an installation happens or a repair happens or something like that, like there has to be some kind of, you know, sign off on that. Because like we get called, like when we were there, like we would have AOG or aircraft on ground. Like that just means that if something happened or something failed or they needed it right away, like that was your highest priority at that point, right? And there's these things called DPAS ratings and stuff where like that's how you rate, that's how you schedule your start to builds, right? Because like certain DPAS ratings, you know, higher XO, things like that, like those are priority to the government and like nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if the same government entity wants something else, like you have to go for this rated, you know, this rated contract first. Whether that makes sense or not dollar-wise.
I'm trying to grasp exactly what you mean. So they get first dibs whether you want to sell, because there's no real, it's not like a capitalistic system within the government. Like you don't go to the highest bidder, you go to who has the bid on it.
There's contracts that might have been there for 3 years. And if something comes up in this contract now takes priority. It'll take, even if it's like, you know, a lot of people, maybe like Navy, Marine, Air Force, Army, like those are separate branches. Like they have their own people that do their own contracting, right? Like they don't really talk to each other in the point of like to a Raytheon or stuff. Like there are ones that do, and we do have to sometimes be that facilitator of communication.
Yeah, because like Navy planes are, you know, it's not just like Air Force that are on Navy ships. Like those are Navy, that's their own Air Force within the Navy. Yeah.
And there's products that are specific to each. So like we might have the same product that is different variants to each Army, Navy, Marine.
Yeah, because they can kind of spec things if they need a specific.
There's certain requirements for each of them.
But
some
also,
are much harder than others too.
You know, I'm sure there's somebody at Raytheon right now that gets like a call that's like, hey, you know, we need weapons that are specific to like, you know, this location.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, wait, well, we're actually currently in war in the desert. Why do you need something that's specific to
There's crazy requirements. There's crazy like that's why things take so long. Like there's a lot of our doing was trying to understand lead times at suppliers, external parts and stuff like that. Because like our in-house build may be 300 days, right? Which people are like, oh my God, 300-day lead time, like that sounds like a lot. You can have 2,000-day lead times. Like those are working days, not calendar days.
That's an expensive part at the end of 2,000 days to make.
Yes, but at the same time, you could have a part that goes into it that takes 500-600 days to get from a supplier. So like you're literally scheduling in, like these are not, I mean, all of these are very, very complicated bombs, bill of materials, where you might have 10, 13, 15,000 parts that it takes to go into that. So like, and you're scheduling all of those to try to make it happen on a certain day for the customer. So like you're looking at, I mean, the complexity of this, like most people can't grasp it. Like just the complexity of how to build something like that. And then who does it go to? Like, do you have to send it out for testing, right? Like quality assurance and things like that. Like any of those things that get in the way of one part will ruin your whole build.
Yeah, well, my only equivalence is to like a race car of level of like difficulty. And like if you said like 2,000 days to build a race car, you know, maybe 2,000 hours is even insane. But then you say 2,000 days of multiple people on a vehicle.
We have things that take 700 hours of testing.
Just of testing?
Just to test it. 700 hours.
Per part, not per...
Sometimes they could be bulked. But you're not... You got to think of like the size of things. Like sometimes maybe it's a communications device where you can bulk a bunch of them. A bunch might be 200. Like you're not doing anything that's like really high volume in the sense of like you're not printing off bolts and nuts. You're not doing 1 million a day of something, you know, like high volume for us for certain items was like 150 a week. Which is fairly high volume, you know, like for something complicated and complex.
Yeah.
So like that would be our high volume.
I imagine it a lot more like that SpaceX video we were watching, I was talking about, where it's like limited production, but very precise. Very expensive, very large item.
Well, and what's crazy too is like a lot of, like you don't think about the amount, when something goes, that many parts to all come together, you know, maybe not at once because you have sub-assemblies and things like that. But like if one of those really go bad, like you can stop a floor. You can stop people that you've already budgeted for, and now they're on downtime, and that downtime doesn't last long. Like you burn up, you know, 50, 60, 100 people hourly, like you can burn yourself right out of your profit.
Oh yeah.
So like, and then there's, you know, like whose fault is it?
Yeah.
Is it the supplier's fault? Is it a quality issue? You know, like, because if it is, you're going to go back on that supplier for the dollars that you lost.
It's not like a Toyota factory stopping.
Correct.
So they can change something.
Yeah.
It's something stupid like that.
The complexity is honestly what kept me so interested with it, especially from that aspect. Like your brain was always moving, and that's what I like. Like I can't be idle. Like I don't want to be idle. Like I just have to be thinking about like the next thing, the next step, the next problem, you know, like all the time. And like that's what that did. To a point though, it'll burn
shows
you
in
out.
your car and Brett's car. That similar thinking, I would say, of the complexity, the constant change, I would say, and the constant
always trying
minute
to evolve.
Details.
Yeah, it's always the evolution. Like my favorite part of the car is building it, which I think, you know, most people know now because like I did a 25.3 in my car and stuff, and like I just did it myself, and that's what I want to do. But I enjoy the build process more than I wouldn't say maybe not more in the drive, about as much as the driving.
Well, there's a lot of build process and very little bit of driving.
Correct.
In every car.
Yeah.
I don't care what car you're building unless you buy it from the factory.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more build process than driving. Yeah.
And if you love the build, then you kind of just want to keep building. Now, I also want to be rewarded at the end, you know, but like I just want to build, and I want to do something new. I don't want to build the same thing over and over again. Like that's not challenging, right? Like once you've developed the process, you've implemented that process, you're like, okay, well, cool. Like you already know the outcome. You already know where you're going. It's like, okay, we're going to be doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, you don't want to be an assembly line builder on a car.
No.
Because that kind of ruins the fun of it.
And some people like that, and that's great. You know, like I just couldn't do it. Like I wish I could be happy like that. I also wish I could be happy with a slow car. Like, man, if I had like a 10-second car, maybe I'll piss off people by saying 10-second car slow, but like
relatively.
Like it would be like I would love to just be like as happy as some of those guys are, and that's why I'll never like put somebody down for like how fast they go, because I'm like, man, like that dude's excited. He just won a 1099. You know, like
it all
that
elevates.
Sounds awesome.
I mean, you wouldn't have a 7-second car right out of the gate. I mean,
no, I think that ruins it.
Yeah,
the process is where
you experience that. You know? Like it takes the time to get there, and I think again it ruins it if you just have a 7-second car all of a sudden.
If you jump in and go sevens, you didn't experience the highs and the lows, and then what does it really take to do this, and you know, not, and maybe people don't want to experience that. I just feel like they're missing a lot when they don't.
Absolutely. Oh man.
Yeah, this rain's getting pretty bad, bud.
Hopefully,
might be doing this in night mode.
Yeah, hopefully it stays light in here. But I see this with people where they get kind of ahead of their skis a little bit. They buy like a car that's proven, but then when it gives them a problem, suddenly they don't have those like that experience.
Correct.
That you can just like, oh well, you know, getting to this point I had these troubles, so now I know how to get from that point of troubles back to the point I'm at now, if that's making sense to people.
And it puts a lot of things in perspective of like, you know, that horsepower is going to cause failures.
Yeah.
That's just, it doesn't matter what parts there. Everyone says that, like, oh yeah, you know, like the best parts will break. And you're right, they will. But also there's a good thing about buying the best parts too, because you usually get the best service as well. Retrospectively speaking, because there's also companies that really don't back their product too.
Yeah.
So always support companies that back their product.
We've all dealt with products like that, and I've been frustrated more times than ever because I buy what I think is the best of the best, and it turns out to be a bust. And
I usually tell you it's a bust.
Yeah, that's true. You usually tell me beforehand.
Yeah, usually, buy once, cry once. That's my main motto.
Yes, and that's why you have a fast forward race engine. Coyote.
You're not wrong. But that's also the first one they ever built. So.
Is that?
Yeah.
Really?
That's
So.
That was the first. I've known Joe.
I was going to say, we should rewind on that.
We can go really far back.
Because Joe, Fast Forward Race Engines, he's been on the channel before. He's one of the best people in engine building, period.
And one of the best people.
Just in general, yeah.
Like he's not afraid.
He builds my 2Js as well.
He's not afraid to fail and learn from it and make it better. That's what I think. A lot of people don't see, you know, well, they don't really see failures with Joe because he's already lived through them and he's learned from them. A lot of people don't learn from failures. They just do it, and like somebody says, oh, like it just should work, you know, and like then they just keep doing it because it's like, oh, well, you know, like you have a car this fast, it's just going to happen. Like this is just a wear item, or, you know, oh, it's just part of racing. Like I think that line's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But, you know, like there's a lot to learn.
Some things are, but then some things you see happen and they're like, it's part of racing, and you're like,
yeah,
that's not, that shouldn't
correct.
be actually.
You shouldn't be putting pistons in that thing, you know, like every 10 runs with a car that's going 8s. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
It's just, I mean, I guess depending on what motor it is too.
And I talked about this with Aaron Miller a little bit of like level of car to how much work you have to do on it. And in this day and age, it changes over time. But in this day and age, an 8-second car, a mid 8-second car should not require that much work.
Correct.
Even a mid 7-second car is kind of getting to that point where it shouldn't require that much work once you build it correctly with the right parts.
I mean, I have a little 2.5 years on my engine, and I just gave it to Joe to just do a refresh on it because I was like, it's probably time.
But
like,
for reference, you were, what, 4,000 pounds?
No, it was 30, well, most of the time it was 3,650. Okay. And then towards the last, I don't know, 7 months before the end of the year, so middle of last year, say, it got down to 3548 with me in it. So like, that was great. Like, I was pretty happy about that.
But just so people get this, it is a stock body Mustang S197. S197. 8.8 still.
Still at the 8.8.
3,500 pounds. And it went 200 miles an hour at what, 7.0?
Yeah, it went 7.0. 708.
Full interior. 68 millimeter turbos.
6870 precisions. Those are bad little units.
Stock block Coyote. Yeah, I mean, that kind of means less now because they've been...
Gen 1 heads, has cams, modular head shop cams, but it has a FFRE bottom end, you know, and it's like, it's a stout unit. Like, it's more of a keep it simple. Don't go crazy. Like, most people are like, oh, you need GT350 heads or Gen 2 heads or Gen 3 heads. And I'm like, well, Gen 1 heads work pretty good. I've seen a lot of mile an hour out of them.
I really don't think that there's anybody that could tell you what you need on a Coyote at this point because...
I mean, I'm always willing to learn, though.
I understand that, but between you and Brett, what you've gone through...
We've gone,
There's very few people that could say, hey, you guys really need to do this, or...
Yeah, there's a lot of times you see some things and you're just like... You see things on the internet and, like, you don't want to... I try to comment on things... but in like a respectful way of like, hey, like I just wouldn't do it. Like you don't need this, but not like a, hey, you're dumb, you don't need this kind of stuff. What are you doing? It's like, hey, like what is your actual goal? A lot of people, you know, like every Coyote now that has 76 millimeter turbos automatically makes 2,000 horsepower, regardless if they have a, you know, 1,500 horsepower limited fuel system. Like that's what everyone, you know, like, oh, should make 2,000 or whatever. And it's like 2,000's a lot. Like people throw that number around, but like, that's a lot of power. There's a lot going on to efficiently make that.
The supporting to that is really difficult, and that's what people don't realize. Like, once you buy the engine, maybe it costs $30,000 from, you know, cylinder heads to oil pan. Yeah. Maybe a little more, something around there.
Yeah, depending on the combination, you're probably right in the ballpark.
But then once you start thinking about how to supply the fuel to it, a transmission that can hold that, that's where it starts getting very
And there's guys that do it with lesser parts and products, and it doesn't make it any lesser. There are different ways. Like, how much do they race? You know, like some people only race a couple times a year, or you know, maybe once a month. Like once a month would be light for us. You know, like we're at least testing twice a month probably.
You guys win once a month.
Yeah, we've done a lot of that.
So if you guys also don't know, we're talking about Brett LaSala's car. I gotta hit my green bell for that one.
I'm gonna hit it too.
Yeah, there you go. Jim is obviously obviously to me, but obviously one of the driving forces behind that car. He's engineered the entire turbo kit, the entire turbo system.
Yeah, we've done a lot on the car.
Tons of the dry setup stuff and
just help like chassis wise, rear end. You know, like we've changed a lot on that car than when we originally bought it.
Yeah,
you know, for the better.
Yeah, so the car came stick shift from Joel Steele. It was a proven 6-second car.
Proven car.
But it was lightly proven also. He didn't have a super crazy amount of laps on it before he was like, eh.
Correct. And I mean, I think he had, you know, obviously stick shift racing's tough, especially when he did it. He did it back when it was, you know, like that wasn't a thing. You know, like there was, how many 6-second cars? I don't know, probably 2 or 3 at that point. Grannis, Grubworm, and him, I think.
Yep.
I don't know of anyone else at that point.
It was just the 3.
Yeah. So, like, you know, like, there was things that
none of those were LSs, too. Huh.
A freak. Yeah, tough break. But no, like there was a lot that could be. They set up the car really well for what it had. There was just improvements that could be made, you know, and I think that's where, as you saw over, you know, the time of that progress with that car, when we first came out with it, everyone was like, there's no way that thing's gonna go 6s as a street car. Like I think we announced like we want to go like 660s or 680s with it or whatever, you know, and like that was like our thing. And like there was so many people are like, that's never gonna happen. You're never gonna do a drag and drive with that thing, blah blah. I'm like, no, we did. You know, like
twice.
We knew what we did. We knew what we set it up for.
Yeah.
You know, and we built it for that. I mean, the fuel cell had an electric pump in it automatically. We set it up to run, you know, so it could run pump gas while it's driving. Has an air-to-air intercooler on it.
It's got a big fuel tank in the back.
Correct. Yeah, it's got it had a 10.5 gallon tank when we first made it. Tank dimensions somehow, I'm not very good with them. When you do complex dimensions, I'm not very good at math.
Yeah,
the math doesn't math.
It's not just a box.
No, it's math doesn't math very well. Brett'll like that. But yeah, the next one we built was like 8.5 gallons, that was way more time than we wanted to spend in that car.
Yeah.
I mean, you could drive 150 miles or so, and like you were ready to get out of that thing, you know, like just for the tone of the noise, not because it was like super uncomfortable or anything, but the tone of that engine sitting at like 3,500, just cruising, like that was, it got to you.
People don't realize how grueling that is.
But man, it's
in a car like that.
It's so much fun.
Absolutely.
It's hitting yourself over the head and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Because like and the same thing, like we go back to like just want to be constantly challenged and everything like that. Like we had a failure, we would have it fixed. You know, like we were just, okay, how do we fix it? You know, when we broke off the trailer hitch the first day, it's like, boom, who do we call? Eric, cool. He was able to have a spot. We got it there, you know, limping with the parachute literally flopping and hanging off the back. And we got it there, and, you know, we spent the whole night re-welding it up, making it stronger, and it lasted for the rest of the week. Same thing when the bumper blew off. Like, that's fun to me.
You know, the bumper did blow off.
Bumper blew off. Like, that was fun. And that happened because of the night before.
Yeah.
You know, like, we didn't have the right things to get the paneling in the back secured right. And we just sent it. Like, that's what you do on a drag and drive. You know, like, we were like, well, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Made it a pass. That was good enough for a one and done. Let us work the rest of the day, but like that's just what it takes. You know,
well, you guys have always a unique strategy, which shouldn't be unique, but somehow seems unique to have a list.
Yeah.
And have a clear plan and have a clear like strategy. It sounds like it sounds like everybody would have it, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
as somebody who pays attention pretty well to,
we plan everything that we're going to do. Everything that we do is calculated to a point. You know, like we overcome adversity through things that we didn't calculate. But like when we go into that trip, we said, okay, we want to run, you know, 30s, 20s every day. Like that was our goal. Like we ran day 4 or 5 times. We had a 628 the first run, and like most people would go pack it up, but Jeff Lutz was behind us at that point, and like if we went a 24, we would like kind of lock him out of being able to come back at us. Yeah, and that's what we did. We ran 3 more times throughout the day, and on the 4th run, I think it was, we went a 23, and we were super excited. You know, we were like, cool. We kind of locked him out, and then at that point, you know, like they went through a lot of parts failures, and those guys are killer because they really tried. But I think at that point, like once you start doing the math of the averages over the time, like that 23 kind of made him have to run like a 589 or something like that, or a 590 or something.
It's so dumb to even talk about that number on a drag and drive on a small tire.
Yeah.
To say, even on a street car in general that has a steel roof, steel quarters,
factory front frame rails.
It is fairly heavy. That's always a
final weight with all the weight on the nose, which is what we had to run to go fast, was 2970. And like we would advertise like 2940 to 2950, but like when we got back from adding things and trying to move things around and get that, you know, get it on the nose because we were just fighting chassis issues, we were at 2970 with it, and like it was tough
on a factory block. I'll say that in quotes because some people will get
whatever, you know, it's up to them.
It is an OEM block. You can't claim that it's not OEM.
Yeah. Well, I think the term was never supposed to be used in general. It was actually just used for racing.
Yeah.
When people say stock block, they just mean it's not an aftermarket provider.
That's how I thought about it.
Doesn't mean it's physically stock.
Yeah.
You know, like that doesn't, but when you have people that aren't into like really like heavy class racing or things like that, like they just use the name and go with it. Like the street car class is a class. It's not, has nothing to do with street car.
Yeah.
It was modeled after street car, but it is a full class. You're racing a class. It could be called spaceships. Doesn't make it any difference, you know? Like,
and that engine's still wet deck. Yeah. So there's still...
it's a factory deck.
There's water passing through the head and the block.
Head and the block. It's a full factory water pump, factory water flow.
Yeah, everything. All of that is so stupid about
factory
those
alternator
engines.
And everything, like still on 12-volt system. Like, yeah, it's keep it simple. Factory lifters, you know, factory followers, stuff like that. Like, it's a hydraulic motor that's spinning fast.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're not afraid to turn that thing because it hasn't shown us that we should be scared yet. But we also don't run crazy stuff. Like, when you hear it idle and stuff like that, it doesn't have a crazy cam lobe. And most mod motors really don't. But it's built for a purpose, and, like, that's what you want. You know, like, it needs to survive that. You can't add a ton of lift or a ton of duration to it or take it down because, like, the valve train probably won't survive. We don't know that. It hasn't failed on us yet. But, you know, like, it probably won't survive.
Well, that's the other flip side of it is you guys are very, like... small hammer technique where it's like even when you built the car, you guys started with what, like 76 millimeter turbos, and then you slowly, like, you went through how many different turbos?
What were they? 76 75s, and then like at that point we went 76 80s, and then we went 80 80s, and then we went 80 85s. Like, it was just a progression of, like, you know, because like we were like, oh, it's not out of turbine yet. So let's keep going on this turbo. This is good. We didn't really know where the end was in sight. We kind of had our own personal goals, but then you'd go 83, 85, and then you're like, oh, cool. You know, that was it. We liked the 83, 85s were legit.
I also had the same turbo on my car, and I very much so enjoyed the 83, 85.
83, 85 by Precision.
And now we have the same turbo, I think, again.
No, we went back.
Oh, you went back?
Yeah, we had 86, 85 on it, and we went back to 83, 85. Yeah. That 83, 85 is a bad unit.
That's an 83, 85 right there, actually. But not the next gen. But
that's the next gen unit on, like, if you're not running next gen turbos, like Precision deals, like, you should probably rethink it.
Yeah,
like,
they're really good.
They're phenomenally good.
And you guys have tested more turbos than probably Precision. Like,
we've tested a lot for Precision.
Different,
Yeah, like, we've, like, that's... Like, Brett's car is very good with that because, like you said, small hammer. So, like, Brett will take it and, like, the changes will be so small that we know exactly, like, it was a turbo change. Yeah. You know, like
something's not just going to happen and be like, well, I don't know what went on there.
We didn't go change it and, like, we ran, like, oh, this pass we ran 35 pounds of boost and this one we ran 55 or whatever, right? Like, you knew, like, you could compare a 45-pound run to a 45-pound run and see a clear difference. And we monitor shaft speed and stuff.
There's really not many cars like that can back up a run enough to where you can actually test small incremental at that speed. You know, maybe a 10-second car you can test little things, but at that speed to be able to back up those kind of things.
I'll tell you what was a really cool compliment. I wasn't there, but Brett was telling me, like, before sick week, the day before, maybe it was the week before. No, it was a week before. It was the Wednesday before sick week or whatever. Like, Mickey Thompson was out there doing tire testing, and at the time we lived in Orlando, so he went to Orlando to go. It was a rental day, and Mickey let him test some tires that they were doing, some 275s. They're like, hey, like, we changed the design of how we did the layup on them or whatever, and they were like really happy with the results because, like, oh, this car is so consistent. This car, you know, like, it wasn't $1 million to run. Like, you get a car that needs to go, you know, 14s, 4.0s. Like, most of the time those are like your Pro 275 or your bigger small tire cars, which are a lot of money to run, you know, per run.
And not that weight either.
And consistent.
Yeah.
And, like, it was like, okay, like, you could, like, I think they did like 3 back-to-back runs on the tire or whatever, and then they wanted to see it, you know, so they took off tires or whatever or something like that, and then they gave him back a new set or something, you know, for doing it. But they were like, man, this was great. Like, he repeated his runs, like, you know, like, literally writing it down on a chalkboard or whatever. Like, it was just...
That's cool.
Yeah, so, like, that's, you know, like, that's a cool little pat on the back of, like, man, like, this car is that good.
Not many people can do, like, the Babe Ruth point at the crowd and, you know, like...
hit it out the park.
Pick your shot. Like, pick where you're going to, you know, like, he was to point at where he's going to hit it to and then do it. And not many people could could do that.
Yeah.
And that's always very impressive. Maybe not many in the street car. Once you start talking like Pro 275 and like LDR and that kind of stuff, they could.
Yeah, but then you hit the cost. You know, I think that's where like it was like, man, like we can do multiple laps like this and like.
Yeah.
We had, you know, it was just fuel costs.
But those guys have a ceiling. Like, this is how fast you can go in LDR, pretty much. Like, it's not like a rule, this is how fast, but, like, if you go faster, your trophy is going to be weight.
Side note, that class is very fast right now.
It is very fast. It's a really cool class.
I would love to see it tailored back a little bit, but man, it's fast. Like,
they're all getting fast. I mean,
but they're heavy.
LDR, X275, and Pro 275 are kind of starting to group together.
Pro 275 has been too fast. It's because it's just everybody that came back from RBW.
Yeah.
You know, like that was kind of it was really cool to see how fast you could push a 275. But like there's hardly any RBW. RBW's making a comeback now, it seems like, but it's also 50K payout. You take away 50K payouts and, you know, like it doesn't really survive.
It kind of just competes with Pro Mod RVW.
Yeah.
Like, if it's kind of like whichever one is going to pay out more that year, people will switch back and forth.
But I think as it should, because that is the like kind class.
Yeah.
You know, like it's two different styles of racing, but the same style car, you know, to a point. The same
car can do it. I mean, we saw Stevie Fast, which is obviously a motion TBM secret parts car.
That thing's bad.
Yeah.
God, that thing's bad.
You watched him change his whole car up and run both of them,
which is
back to back.
Crazy because like you could probably tell him, you'd be like, hey, like how much faster you'd be if you had a specific chassis. Because like you are making, there is a clear, you know, disadvantage to having a car that does both.
Yes.
You know, like, I mean, you know, to put in, like, that's what we did with Brett's car. Like, we did a car that did everything. And unfortunately, we had cars coming after us from No Time, cars coming after from Small Tire, you know, lightweight cars, heavy car. It didn't matter, but, like, that's target on your back. Like, we only got one car. Like, we can't compete with, it's hard to compete with everybody on the same playing field.
Quarter mile, eighth mile.
Yeah, when you don't have the same playing field of a car.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like,
well, there's always compromise
in
racing and building cars.
Agreed.
Everything's a compromise. Every decision you make is a compromise somewhere.
Yep.
You can't eat your, you know, you can't.
Yeah, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Exactly.
You know,
you have
like,
to pick
unless you got a
something.
lot of money where you could build a bunch of cars. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Garrett's route, is just build a bunch of cars.
That must be stressful. I see them running around with that, and I'm like, no part of that.
That is definitely stressful.
No part of that.
You got to just have like books for each car or something, or just guess.
I don't know.
Laptops for each car.
Thankfully, they're all turbo car, or I think most of them are turbo cars, right? Like besides like maybe the
high level
cars.
stuff.
Yeah, like at least that's the same. They all have the same transmission now, but like you'd throw you like in like McFlurry when I had the Liberty Drive deal, and then like
the
mullet, and then like that would be. Oh yeah, it was a Bruno Linko.
Yeah, same deal. I mean, levers.
Crazy though. Like I don't know. I mean, that's like, but I mean, don't get me wrong. Like that dude's a driver. You know, like that dude. Can kind of do anything. But at the same time, like I wouldn't have fun doing that many cars. Because like as soon as one of them went out, like then you're like, okay, we'll move to the next one. Like then if the other one went out, you're like, crap, I should have spent more time on that one. You know, like I had a much better chance, but you're not. You're distracted.
I think that was TX2K one year.
Yeah.
Where multiple of them broke.
Yeah.
And it kind of just happens like that.
Yeah.
But then you go to FL2K the other year, and it was like 3 cars in the winner's circle.
I don't know. I think
so. It's kind of like you roll the dice. Almost.
My move would be to have multiple cars in different that don't share the same event. Yes. Cool. I got an LDR car. Great. Cool. I got a street car. They're not going to be running at the same event. You know?
But going to an LDR race is very different than going to FL2K.
1000%.
Those races are grueling.
Yeah.
FL2K is kind of like fun, lighthearted, enjoyable. Those races are like races.
Well, yeah, you're fighting within most of the time 2/10.
Not that those races aren't fun to go to and enjoy, but like they're different level of competition.
Yeah, your competition, you will win or lose by cutting a light. Whereas most of the time at FL2K, like, you know, like not, it's getting to that point. You saw the streetcar class last year, like top 5 cars or whatever. If you take away number 1 qualifier from last year and just did 2 through 7, I think they were all within like a 1/10.5 or 3/10, something like that.
Well, you were runner up last year in FL2K.
Runner up, yeah. I was number 2 qualifier, or no. I don't know. What was I?
You were number 2 qualifier, right behind Danny.
Yeah.
And then you and Travis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that was fun. I was
just messaging with him too.
Oh yeah. He's a good dude. I met him. I saw him at a streetcar bragging rights, whatever. And
it's a badass car.
Yeah.
So
well, it's cool to see different chassis. Like that's what that's about, right? It's a different chassis. You know, that's why it's hard to make rules for that class.
It's cool when he does it, but when RC does it, it's way less cool.
Yeah, RC's got an Extreme 22. Extreme 28's like calling his name.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though he did drive up to the shop and get brake pads for
the
that
other
thing.
S2000 that's in our that runs in the same class as us.
He's a good dude. I love giving him.
It's a fast car. They're both really impressive deals.
Yeah,
still IRS at least.
Still IRS as far as I know. I think Travis is going. I don't want to say that because maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought he mentioned that, like, oh, I'm changing it up or something like that. But then I don't want to, I don't want to be misinformed people.
I've seen plenty of cheatered up IRS cars that are actually not IRS in the streetcar class. These guys out here.
Interesting.
I know. Been on here before.
Calling them out like that?
No one knows what's going on there.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's what keeps it so cool.
Well, there's gray area in racing. And if you're not in that, if you talk to James,
love gray area.
He actually doesn't race within the rule book at all.
He only races gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it should be though. Like that's where innovation comes from. Like that's where the cool ideas, like, like we were talking to somebody and like X275 says you have to have stock floors in your car. I didn't say stock floors from what? Guys are using C10 floors and flattening them out with rollers and then just putting them in place. Doesn't say what floor it had to be from. It just says you have to have stock floors.
Well, like factory frame rail.
Factory frame rail? Yeah.
If you
how much of the frame rail needs to be in? But that's at the same point where like people misunderstand rules in racing because you say factory. So if you said that to anybody else, kind of like the factory block or, whatever, they would think that it had to be as is frame rail.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Wording is important.
Wording is important. It just has to be a factory frame. It doesn't tell you how much of the factory frame rail has to be there. It doesn't say anything like that. It could be a sliver of just one side of it, right? And that is part of factory frame rail. Doesn't say that the full factory frame rail has to be there, whatever. Like that's where I think a lot of things get misconstrued. And, like when you talk about rules that were built from racing and like they had purpose and intention and then you bring them outside and like you have other viewpoints that maybe aren't like in that detail of racing, that's where a lot of that gets misconstrued.
Well, when I was talking to Gonzo, who owns the car that James drives, my twin car.
Exactly.
I was like, oh, do you have a torque arm? And he's like, there's a torque arm in there. And I was like, I don't know what that fully means. It doesn't sound like it utilizes the torque arm.
Now I'm interested because I want to know what that's about.
He said it has one still because you have to have factory suspension. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that it really has to like be in play. It can kind of just flop around a little. And like how are you going to rule that where it's like, well, the torque arm's not actually doing anything.
Well, I think a lot of the whole stock suspension or stock location stuff is also that area where like stock suspension from what?
Yeah, factory style rear suspension. It's like, okay, well, this is from a Fox body in my 240. Correct. But it's factory style.
Well, and like a lot of
factory location firewall.
And what does that mean?
Factory location?
What does stock location mean? Stock location what?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't like a lot of people
I would hate to be John Sears.
I was at a race. I won't say what race.
John Sears makes all the rules for everything basically.
But thankfully there was a rain out at one of John Sears races for that day. And there was a friend of ours that got protested for his rear end because it said just had to be stock location. And when you say stock location, that means the pickup points for the suspension. That means your control arms. It's nothing to do with the shocks.
Yeah.
Shocks are not even part of that equation. It's just the pickup points. Well, they said, oh no, it has inward shocks. It's not part of that rule. I'm like, you need to understand what that rule means. You don't understand that rule, then you can't enforce it. So I messaged John and I said, hey, sorry to bother you. What's your interpretation of this rule? I said, this is the car and this is what it has. He goes, well, typically, that only means your pickup points. That's just your control arms. I said, cool. I said, thanks. Like that was it. Show the guys. They made their own ruling. And I just left the conversation. I was like, hey, like, John.
It's their race.
It's their race. Like, I can't say I won't ever race there again. But I'm saying that you got to have people that are willing to go by the rules of racing. And like, you can't just, you just needed to change what they called that rule. Call it something else than what's traditionally used as a regular rule. That's all. You know, like, and then they'll solve all your problems. But man, that was tough for them.
I know it's hard being a lawyer. It's hard dealing with like law because you're dealing with like law stuff because the definitions have to be important
with no laws.
Yes,
because like there's no actual like everybody takes John Sears.
It's
as being
anarchism
the guy.
law technically.
Yeah,
it's common law where it just has to be kind of mutually agreed on by enough people.
And like I would say every race that I know of that uses that rule, it means what John says it means. You know, because like that's just
he's kind of the final stamp of approval.
Yeah, he's the guy. You know, like nobody really argue. You argue with John, but he's very fair in what he argues. You know, like he's like when he, you know, a lot of his funny ones is like when that guy had like a piece of the stock frame rail in his car, and he was like, "No, I mean, you're right. I screwed up on the rules. Like I didn't clarify that." And he let him race.
But then after 5 years of a class, you get a rule book that's like a book.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, this is dumb. And it's like, well, it's because of if you see a rule book that's really long and a lot of rules, it's likely because of James Tall.
Racers like him.
And Troy.
Yeah.
People like them that race in their own...
Well, you're always trying to find a competitive advantage.
And I have nothing... I'm not faulting them for it. That's what you have to do.
You have to. Yeah.
And that's the correct way to race.
If you want to win. You know, like the intentions of a rule don't mean anything. The rule means something.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't care how you intended it to be. That doesn't mean... Like you have to tell me. It has to be black and white. That's what that means.
Yep.
You know, or it has to be understood from, you know, everybody that races and stuff like that. Like that's what that rule means.
Yeah. I'm going to pee real quick.
You go for it. I think this is the part where we enter in a sponsor channel right now. So I know he doesn't have any sponsors or channels besides Bogetti Studios and maybe Bogetti Racing. But this is now sponsored by TBM. We are not paying him anything. And nor does he even have TBM brakes. But this is now sponsored by TBM. So maybe we'll get him a set here soon. But thank you guys for watching.
What?
Sean Madden. Dude's wild.
That's
wild, dude.
That's a cheatered up car.
Is it? What? There's no rules in stick shift.
I know. But if you look at like Corvette, you're like, that thing's...
I love it.
Far from Corvette.
Is it though?
Well, that was always the debate with Garrett. That was like the bane of the existence of Leroy for the first like 8 years of it, where it was like, that's not a Corvette, it's a swamp buggy.
Yeah, I hope it gets a body and goes slower, just so he doesn't have to run the body. I feel like you got to stick with your guns on that deal. You can't. I feel like he's giving in a little bit to the people. I know he's not because I know he's trying to prove a point. But if it goes faster with the body, I'm going to be super upset because that means I'm going to see that body more. Which it looks killer. That's not Leroy. You know what I mean? Like, I know he only wants to do it in like the finals or whatever and something like that, but like, I don't know.
Well, there's weird rules about body parts too. So like World Cup, you cannot like remove or lose a body part once competition starts, because like at World Cup, people will lose doors.
Yeah, the Honda
like
guys.
Hondas.
They almost got kicked out. Like they said, I forgot what year it was. They said if you run this company's door, you cannot race because so many came off.
Yeah.
Like that's what it turned to. And like they actually, I think they kicked somebody out because they had that door. Like how bad would that be? Like,
I mean, it's tough. It happens. Like I've seen so many doors, hoods, rear windows, like. And there's rules about you cannot lose panels throughout the rounds, even if you still make weight.
Yeah.
You cannot suddenly have less panels on your car.
Well, and like it's a safety thing. I get it, because like I wouldn't want to hit a door.
No.
Like you're in the other lane, the thing comes off and hits you. Like it's probably not going to do too well.
No,
you know,
it's not going to be fun.
Your front end doesn't even stay on with it, you know, with nothing hitting it.
No.
So like imagine something hitting it.
I've been in one car accidents on the track.
The catfish mouth's going to be sucked inwards is what it's going to be.
I ordered the piece to fix that.
All right,
you know, it'll be better now.
Yeah.
It'll be better now.
Now we just got to get you to go racing again.
It's summer, dude. It's too hot to race.
It's already raining right now.
It's literally a flood out there.
The worst part is when you go out to the track, you get all set up and unloaded, and then the rain comes.
Yeah.
God, that's so disheartening.
Well, last time I went racing, I kind of got tricked by Troy. I went to race the no time deal, $100 buy-in, full payout, whatever, at like a test and tune. and he invited me to the fastest class they've had. I was like, thanks, Troy.
You really needed that fifth car or fourth car. He was like, who can we get to do this? Cooper.
Yeah.
Cooper, he's close. He'll do it.
He's had some slower fields, and I was like, all in. I was like, let me know.
Yeah, but then you got big blocked.
And then
nitrous big blocked.
It's all nitrous big blocks.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
to the 8th mile, too. It's a tough break.
It doesn't even make any sense. Yeah. And I'm just coming off from an accident.
And I think the next week it was slow after that.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's really nice of him. So
did you solid.
Let's talk about your car a little bit. Let's we touched on Joe, the guy, and how you kind of got him into Coyotes is interesting.
Yeah.
Did you get him at no, you didn't get him into Fords because he's done small
he's
Ford
done
stuff
Fords,
forever.
Yeah. Well, go really far back. I met Joe because he did all the machine work on I used to have a Ford Focus when I was like 16. 16. Actually, I've only owned 2 cars. Ford Focus and my Mustang. So I learned a lot on the Ford Focus.
Yeah.
It was a cool car, but Joe sleeved it at the time. Well, I when I was, I don't know, like 19 or 18 or 19.
Sleeved like Ford Focus.
It was, so I was assembling engines at the time. I didn't know what I was doing, but that's how I learned.
Yeah.
But like I would get a piston out of the box. Like I did this once or twice and I learned, but like I just drop it in with the rings in it, you know, like, and it would last quite a while. No ring gap, no nothing. Like, but I'd also like ball hone it, and like, it was good.
Yeah.
I didn't know what piston slap was at the time, but I do now, and it was loud. So you know, then I got a block, and then Joe did the real machine work on it, and like I was still assembling my own motors in, but Joe did all the machine work. I was just slapping them together.
But at the time, he was building like serious engines.
This was just after, so he worked for Chris Nelson and Nelson Competition.
Yeah,
at that time, that's where
900 cubic inch big blocks,
big nitrous stuff. Like he was, you know, like they were XT75 stuff was starting to gain popularity. They were building some badass stuff, and then he went on his own and he had a shop down in like Pinellas Park ish area. Right, actually, you know where Quaker Steak is in Clearwater?
Oh, absolutely,
like literally right down the street, like. Like you could throw a rock from Quaker Steak.
Been
like
to that Quaker Steak dozens of times.
That's where his shop was, and that's where I really started. You know, like that's where I started having all my machine work done and stuff like that. Because I'd blow that thing up quite a bit.
Well, that was when like there was a heyday of racing on the street
all the time. Yeah,
Clearwater
every single weekend. I mean, literally Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, and then you'd go out on Wednesdays if you had the time.
That was like when James was blowing up his 240.
That's
all
where
the
I
time
met James.
doing that. Yeah,
me and James met street racing.
I wasn't in Florida at that time yet.
Yeah, we met before that. Just he went to a rival high school with football stuff, but I met him from parties and stuff, and then we met out at street racing and stuff. But so Joe had that shop, and he did that for a while, and then he moved up to Newport Richey before this shop that he has now, and that's when I had a Coyote. I started doing, like Joe was my guy. Like I formed really good friendship with Joe, way back when. And then I was like, hey, like, would you build this Coyote for me and stuff? And it was just a basic pistons, rods, engine. No, it was sleeved. So he couldn't even do the sleeve work then. He wasn't really set up to do sleeve work at that point. He could, but it was just not advantageous for him to do it. So he had the block sleeve for me. And I came back, and he did all the assembly work. And then he built me a short block, I think, at that point. And that was my first Gen 1 block that I just sold. Like, I went 7.3 on that setup. And it was
Gen
1 block, sleeved. It had at the time the thing was cylinder supports, where you like had like these little billet aluminum sleeves that you'd slide into the water jacket, and then you drill holes and you'd set screw it to the side of the to the side of the inner sleeve, Yeah. And like you would just put green Loctite, which is sleeve retaining compound, which you can never get it out at that point. It's like one with the block, and then you'd put a little bit of You'd put a little bit of dang it, what is it called? What's the stupid stuff? The gray stuff that you mix 2-part epoxy.
Oh, the JB Weld.
JB Weld over it to make sure it wouldn't leak because it was a coolant passage.
Well, that's
to
your
that
nickname.
Point.
How do you not know
Dude,
that?
Tough break.
JFab, JB Weld.
JB Weld is what CJ used to call me to piss me off. But yeah, so like Joe did all the machine work stuff then, and like it was his first one at that time, and then from that point, like that was a great engine. I mean, I had the thing in it for like 3.5 years, and then like he was like, hey, let's probably do a refresh on it, blah blah. But then at that point, then like Brett started using them, and then we, that kind of evolved to now him doing all the Coyote work.
And that was like early in Coyote stuff.
That was
because the Coyote was launched.
That was probably 2013.
Like when you got your Mustang was like
I got it in 2012, August 2012.
Yeah, so Coyote were just out.
Yeah, owned that car for a long time.
Yeah,
12 years.
I
still like it, which is crazy. Like I love that car still. I still think it looks good. It's like the Fox body. I think it's going to be the next Fox body. You know?
Yeah, it's a very timeless car.
Yeah, that's how I feel about that. So I guess Joe probably did that engine in probably 13, 14, right around that time frame. Because it didn't last long.
Super early on.
Yeah, because I had a twin turbo. I built a twin turbo kit for it at the time. Made 760 on stock motor, and it ended up going like 9 stock Gen 1 motor. Ended up going like 9.2 at 151
with a 6R80.
6R80.
Yeah,
yeah, and it was like 3780 at that point. It was full interior with the 10-point cage added on top, back seats, like.
It was cool that it was, 6R80, because 6R80 now is like so highly regarded.
Yeah. Well, it's a great trans.
It is as far as like an automatic overdrive trans with multiple gears.
Yeah.
That is cream of the crop.
I wish the tuning side of it was a little bit easier for swaps, because I think you'd see a ton of them.
Yeah.
But like you kind of have to run the OEM computer with those things. If you want to go fast, I feel like.
And you've probably one of the few people that have not run an OEM computer.
Yeah, I ran a Motec on it, and that was cool. We did a lot of, that was the first firmware that came out, and then Vit from Motec, he was really, like, that was his baby. Like, he developed everything on that, and he kept working with the car quite a bit, and, like, we would do firmware updates, and that just helped everyone at that point.
Yeah.
Because now the 6R80 firmware is pretty legit. Like, you can do a lot of really neat stuff with that, especially, like, even, like you can hold if you start the car and like hold the down arrow, like you can just do second gear launches at that point.
Oh, that's cool.
Like you can do all these little like trick things to it, and like if you wanted like another shift or something like that differently, like you could just do like paddle combinations and like it would change whatever map that was.
It is cool to have aftermarket ECU with OEM style trans like that. And the new style trans are so different. It's not a 4L80. It's the complexities of the gear shifts and what the OEM logic can do versus what an aftermarket ECU can do are so different.
It drove around incredible. Like I think that was the coolest thing is that like you would, like most transmissions after you build them and stuff like that, like usually like shifting's pretty rough, they're not really refined at that point because you're just having to put a lot of line pressure into it. But since that one was an electronic valve body, it would bleed off pressure correctly to like have like just like smooth shifts. Like, like it would just drive around like normal.
Well, we raced when you had that transmission. Yeah, we lined up together.
You're gonna bring up U1. You gotta bring it up.
I wasn't gonna say it.
Yes, you were.
That was my first 7. That was my first 7-second pass.
It was.
But I was gonna bring up how I could feel you next to me, and I could hear the car shifting as like, because I'm just sitting there like,
like it's a tone.
Yeah, exactly. But then I hear like like a sport bike is next to me, and I'm just like, what the hell?
It's a shame he took away that class, or else I'd still have that. Probably.
Oh, Victor took away, yeah.
He took away my 17-inch tire class.
He did ruin that for you.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
it was. Back.
They made an interesting class for you, but I think you went faster than me. I think I was I got out on you.
I was
just a little bit. It was like a dead even race.
The 6R80 trans brake stuff, like actually with the Motec it was much better. I was actually just slow that day, or that race, I guess. But like it was from the factory, there's a delay because it's electronic. Like everything you're doing, like there's no trans brake solenoid on the thing. You have small solenoids inside the valve body that you're activating, but like they were never made for like a like a trans brake valve body. You're just applying pressure to two clutches.
They were made to hold forward, first gear and reverse.
Yeah, like you don't even do. You do like it's the like the C and B drum or the A, B, and C drum. Like you can choose like what drum you're applying, but you're literally just locking drums together at that point.
Interesting. So for people that don't know, like a power glide holds first gear and reverse. Yep. And then once you let it go, it just stays in first.
It's a nice clean release and everything like that. Like fluid, you could see it. So I had a bunch of sensors that we tapped in, and you could see the difference when like you would put it on the trans brake, and then like you would release. There was a long fill time and a long release time. So like that's why they were just slow on the trans brake. Like
Interesting.
it's just an inherent, like thing. You could probably there's probably better ways to get around it now, and probably a little bit better ways to do it. Maybe more modifications to the trans, but yeah, you were just dealing with factory circuits and a factory valve body at that point.
Yeah, it would just take that fine tuning of endless amounts of passes and stuff. And at that time, Brett was building the trans.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was. I mean, at that. Before that time, when I first did 6R80 stuff, we were going like 8s, and then I think I went 8.0s multiple times. I never went 7s with the 6R80 and the stock computer in that form. I did go 7s with this Motec stuff, but I just could never get shifting right on that at the time. Like the tune just wasn't there. Which 6R80 and tuning is like your life's end. Like if you don't have a good tune on an OEM computer and a 6R80, like you're not really doing much.
Yeah, you kind of live and die by that.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, London and them have it. I mean, all of our friends that go racing with us, like Chambly had 6R in his car, and like he was doing very well with it. Like they've got that thing dialed in. Like now, the time between then and now is massively different.
Yeah, I mean, anything with enough time given will eventually get there.
Time and effort.
Yeah,
like
there has to be somebody willing to get bloody.
Yeah, and if it wasn't Brett and Lund at the time. Like Brett first started and like he was really pushing it, and there was a couple other people. Lund was also pushing it too, but like after like Lund really went in. Like if it wasn't for them in the last 2-ish, 3 years, maybe more, I don't know where it'd be. It wouldn't be where it's at now.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be there. Like they did the community a solid on that one.
Yeah, I know. I always like to give a lot of respect to Lund because that is not for the faint of heart. No. Obviously he did it for business, but like, in the racing world, if somebody's doing something difficult that
you're putting yourself at a disadvantage right away.
Yeah. Like, and it's cool to see.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see from an outside perspective.
Yeah. And like at World Cup, I think, that was a great, I don't want to call it a loophole or gray area, but like that, like it wasn't at first. And then they built and improved on it so much that it became an advantage. We'll see what happens to the rules this year. I'll be interested. I don't think they deserve to be in the next class up. So I hope that doesn't happen or anything like that. But I wonder what's going to happen in that class in general because that class got real fast.
Were you guys in that class with them too? No, you weren't in that same class.
No, we were in the next one up.
Yeah.
I think they were in Super Street. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm always so hazy on those classes.
Yeah. And we were in Warriors versus Trace.
Yeah.
And then when I did it early on, I was in Wild Street.
Yep.
I think I got moved. I think they ended up getting moved to Super Street at that point.
It's really hard to rule coyotes in any class. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, it's easy to rule out big blocks because you could just put a turbo size limit. Out. It's easy to rule out, like, LSs for the turbo size thing. Yeah. But you coyote guys can't really get ruled out without it negatively impacting all of the other guys.
They run really well on small turbos still.
And that's
what the engine's not entirely happy.
Yeah.
But it'll still go really fast.
Exactly. So, like if you want to touch on some of that, would be interesting to compare. Yeah. Like a big block needs
at least, I mean,
T6s.
Or cheated up T4s, right? But like it's still going to be tough on back pressure side of the house. Like I'm sure somebody could build a pretty badass T4 turbo for a smaller cubic inch big block, and it'd probably do pretty well.
Yeah.
But they've only limited them to singles now.
Well, now I don't think the street car class even allows.
Yeah, it's just nitrous now, right?
Only nitrous big blocks.
Yeah.
So now it doesn't matter.
Which, did you see who was on that list? Rick's still on that list for street car.
Interesting.
I wonder if it's going to be a small block now.
Or, yeah. It's definitely not going to be nitrous.
No, I don't think so.
I don't. Very unlikely. But I know he does like those small blocks too. Yeah. He's pretty good with those.
I hope so, because I mean, they're just great people.
Yeah. And that car's really cool. And it's not quite enough car to fit into 28s.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think it would just need more work.
Yeah.
Like I think that car is chassis limited. I mean, they know. I mean, it's just a short wheelbase, It's an older chassis, older stuff. That's why they're building the new chassis and stuff. But they just want to do no time with that.
So we're talking green RX-7 that I've raced forever.
Yeah. I mean, he's beat us.
I've been around that car for so long. That car is very responsible for a lot of people progressing in their program. Very much. Like both Garrett, you guys, Brett, like everybody, a lot of people progressed. Even at the time, the blue Mustang, can't think of his name.
Blue Mustang.
The blue Coyote that was going 6s early on.
Mike's car.
Mike, yeah. Mike Reach, he also had to progress.
Yep.
Just to keep
it pushed
up.
everyone.
Yeah.
It pushed everyone. And I mean, that was an interesting car in general because like it was a big block twins, but it was in a, you know, like arguably probably not a great chassis size or chassis to start with. They made it into something that was, you know, that was really cool.
And he had nothing. He doesn't have anything fancy. Like,
no.
He has like basic turbos, basic engine.
Big block. I think it had BorgWarner or FIS turbos.
Both of them have been on too.
Yeah.
There's an episode with Rick and Cole Prospero on this channel too. If you're,
and it was good.
It was a fun episode with them because they're. People always say like have just like regular racers on. Like you always have these YouTubers on. I'm like, I don't. I have regular racers on. Yeah,
you'll invite anyone.
I like to hear from them. I like to hear from just like a regular race team.
Who wants to sit behind the mic? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But they're cars like that progress the whole field.
And I think the rules in street car are they're getting really good. Some of them I'm still a little questionable on, like the turbo sizes and stuff like that. I think, you know, for what they're trying to do, they're trying to keep the class around like 7.0.
Yeah.
Basically, that's kind of Victor's, you know, like 7.0 is a good number because that keeps, you know, like people that have the budget. Is you're not going to get like absorbent amount of people in that, you know, huge budgets. Like, I mean, I think as RC and even Travis and like myself, stuff like that, like we don't have large budgets to do it. Yep. It's an attainable goal. It's an attainable class where it's not a bunch of 6-second cars.
RC doesn't even trailer his car there. He doesn't even have a trailer.
Oh, did you see he did use a trailer to go to Charlotte though? I was so disappointed.
Man.
Yeah, I thought he had a street car.
I know, right?
Straight to Extreme 28.
They pretend they have a street car.
Yeah. You can't tell me you got a street car and then don't drive it.
But yeah, he just brings his drag and drive trailer there.
Yeah, and he's successful.
Yeah, that car is very impressive.
I mean, he needs a bigger shelf.
Too many trophies.
Too many trophies.
Yeah, I don't keep any of my trophies in here actually, just because I don't want to make anybody feel bad.
Yeah, that's
I keep this room
smart.
Trophy free. Besides that little one,
I'd rather not see the 2 or 3 times I've lost to you now.
You know, James's mom gave me that little trophy, and she said, "Just so you feel like you win sometimes too."
Tough break.
It was very offensive.
Tough break. But it's the only one in here.
It is the only one in here, so. It works.
Yeah. But like I think the rules for FL2K are they're pretty good.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty good. I think turbo size is if you want to keep it to a 7.0 class, I think some of the turbo sizing is a little off. But I think you limit too many combinations if you really try to dial it in for like what the actual capability of a setup could be.
That's where it gets tricky is because, you know, if you do it in like LDR rules, those people are really good at dialing their car in because they have a stacker, they have a tuner, they have all these guys with them. They can dial in their car pretty well. Yeah. Like, you know, I hang out with Red every now and then when he's at the track and he's got multiple converters. Like, he can dial in
He's
a car.
class racing.
Yes.
You know, like, and he's legitimately class racing.
But like street car guys, like if somebody's like, oh, you need a different like this turbo would be better, you probably need to switch. Like it's like, okay, well, hopefully next year I can.
Some will do it.
Yeah.
You know, some won't. I think at least turbo is probably the easiest thing to change. I think for most people, it's probably not the most. It's not probably not. I think it's the most attainable thing.
Yeah.
When you think about like, oh, you know, like if you start adding weights to a class, like aggressive weights, you know, to try to slow it down, that can become expensive. Especially for chassis that are just never gonna, like, you know, Matt's Miata.
Yep.
Like you're never gonna weigh that thing enough. You know, like if you did, it would be dangerous at that point.
I know he was talking about like adding AC because he has like weight to spare.
Correct.
Like he can add weight, and it's like.
But that's cool. At least the rules are enough where like you know, like he's close. You know.
But when a Miata has to add weight, is a crazy thought.
Yeah, but it's also his combo.
I guess it is a light car, so
yeah, it's a light car. But it's his combo. Its problem is like the next car. If you were to do that same thing to like a 240, you know, weight wise speaking, like the 240 is a much better chassis, a much better setup. So you have to compare, you know, like to like. If the 240 was on the same setup and stuff like that, it's probably going to be a little bit quicker.
And you start talking about rear suspension, like Matt Still IRS, like that's such a different situation than these 240s that have solid axle.
Correct.
You know, like James's car, for instance, is super light, solid axle. You know, it's basically a Fox body
Yeah, it's got Fox body rear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a, it's a
Light
it's
as a
IDS
Fox.
4-link, IDS parallel 4, or a traditional style. Jeez, why can't I even think of the word? So dumb. The triangulated 4-link. There we go.
Yeah.
Words
that's
are
what you
hard.
put in your car, right?
Words are hard. No, I still have a 3-link.
Okay, and then you have the wishbone.
Yeah, I have a wishbone because my car came factory with a panhard bar, so the only way to center it up, because there's only 3 links that are parallel, you have to run a wishbone.
It's basically the same. It's not the same style that Snot Rocket 1.0 has.
Yeah, it's the same. That's
you
the
guys
same.
left it
Yeah,
the same.
Yeah, it's a traditional 3-link car. Maybe a little bit not. I have my changes that I've made to it, but very similar in that aspect.
And a lot of the goal is to lower it enough to sit right, because you can't lower those cars enough to get the right angles.
Yeah,
from my understanding,
it's still correct. Like you don't get enough adjustment to angle them correctly. So I didn't go with like a factory upper mount, like, because I just don't feel like they had enough holes. So I just modified one and made more holes. Made more adjustment points.
Yeah.
So like that's just my version of it. Kind of like what you do to a Fox body with a triangulated 4-link. You go from a stock upper torque box to a Marilat, right? And that has more positioning in the uppers and stuff like that. It's the same concept. Just doing it that way. Because like if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it. Like I'm not gonna put a 25.3 in my car and then not touch anything else. Like I need to offset some of that weight. I'd like to get some weight out of the car without ruining it, which, I mean, I still have the stock floor in the car and the cage is built up underneath of it. So like that's cool, but I mean it's it's on the fence of ruining your car.
And everything's so heavy in those cars, like the flooring and the
rockers.
The panels are so
the front frame horns have 19 layers of impact.
Yeah.
Structure there, which is just like, what are you doing? Like, but that's why new cars are so fast. Like that's why they're so rigid. That's why you don't need a ton of stuff, on a newer car, like a Fox body, or a G body or anything, right?
Well, that's why NHRA changed some of their rules for newer cars to be able to go faster, because they are safer anyways, and they go so fast.
And even in like the 25.3 rule book, if you have OEM rockers, OEM A pillar and B pillar and stuff like that, like some of the floor structure you don't even need for like a typical car that doesn't have OEM, like that kind of stuff. So like, it's that they recognizing that it is a, like it is a safety thing, but it's also like, it's a ton of weight, like you can't really get that out of there. Like,
I mean, leaving out a couple bars is nice.
Yeah.
If you can.
If it's at that point, the lower structure, it's probably 10 pounds. So, but I mean, 10 pounds, 10 times, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'll take that.
And even this iteration is interesting. We've talked about this before, but sticking with these same turbos for now.
Yeah.
With the 68s.
That's a timeline thing.
Yeah. I mean, FL2K is coming soon.
I know.
October will be here before you know it.
Yeah, and I got a cage that's not even welded into the chassis right now.
I
dropped it down to paint it yesterday.
I'm trying to slow you down. That's really my goal, so you have less testing on the new chassis.
I mean, you're doing it. I'm here.
I know, and that's my goal. I'm trying little by little to slow you down. I got to slow Doug down a little bit too.
Doug's car's fast.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot faster, so I got to...
And I think he's well within the rules as the current setup.
As it should be.
I think they opened up the rules again to allow turbo sizes a little bit bigger. So I think it should be though. Like it is very nice car, like very OEM-ish.
It is funny that Garrett's El Camino still won't fit.
Yeah.
Because the big block rule. So even once he goes back to a factory...
It'd be cool if he did a small block in it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie. It would be cool. I know he won't, but it would be cool to like take a second stab at like an LS deal or an LT. Doug's engine, that thing's been stout. Like that LT engine, that's seeing how it ran throughout the week. Multiple 200-mile-an-hour passes. One of them or two of them are like 206, 207. Like you're not talking about a little bit of power there. Like the heavier car, like that's pretty serious. And do a drag and drive and do that on drag and drive tracks. Like
that car it's not a Fox body.
No, not by any.
Almost
nice,
two of them.
Nice paint, trim on it. I mean,
almost two Fox bodies.
Finish work in the interior. Like I told him, I was like, man, this car's too nice to go on a drag and drive. Because once you go on a drag and drive, your car's never the same. It's not if you're trying to win and be competitive, and especially if like you got to come up with solutions on the go. They're probably not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Are you guys running out of car with Brett's car? You're out of. Are you out of car?
It's out of car. Yeah. I mean, it's not. It can be improved on still, but it's getting there. I mean,
like,
at
some
any
point you get
like,
it, you run out of car.
Well, and I don't even think it. You just learn more. So you're just like, oh, this could be better. This could be better. This could be better. So you're like, well, at that point, you know, you're like, well, like, man, that's a pretty evasive change. You know, you're like, do I want to cut the back half out of this deal? You know, like, is it something as far as that lines go, or like, what is it? Like, I mean, the chassis still got more in it. It's still good, but it's not. I mean, as you learn anything, you're like, man, I would love to move that here. I'd love to go change this here. You know, and like sometimes you can't do that just because of the way things are already laid out.
Yeah,
like, it would be very invasive. You know.
You know, one of the things I was like piqued my interest a lot. I was talking to Job and Brett, and he said they put wiring like provisions in Brett's car because he doesn't know what kind of sensors they might have someday.
Yeah,
and that really interests me because I like my 2D mind couldn't think of like a 3D situation where there was like more sensors that are suddenly going to appear. Like I was just like, yeah, like, you know, it's all censored out. Like it's got all of them.
There's stuff on this car that nobody's ever seen. Period. Like in like technology on that car that nobody's ever seen.
Like in racing.
Like, yeah. I mean, like it's cool just to be around that. Like Job is just, you know, out of this world knowledgeable. Like, I mean, when you hear about Job lists and things like that, like you're not, when Job tunes your car, if you don't kind of like, I don't want to say do what he says, but like take his recommendations and like go start applying them because like they're actual real, like data doesn't lie. You know, like he's not really going to become interested, like to keep doing it. Like you always have to be progressing. He's a guy that's always wants to progress, always wants to progress. So it's like, oh, hey, let's do this. Let's try this. Let's move this here. Like even if it doesn't work, like it's like, oh, we kind of learned a little bit from that. Like that didn't work. Like Brett's car got way faster, not way faster, but like substantially faster at the ET he was going because something happened at, I think it was Mod Nats, and we were like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. Yeah. And then it was like, then after that, we only started doing that.
Well, you were racing Keith Ray.
Yep. And
you guys tried something.
Correct.
And you had to try something.
We tried something, but it didn't do it. And I think this was the round. This was the round before. It wasn't against Keith.
Okay.
I think it was the round before, and it fell out of something and did something else, and the car still worked. And we were like, what? Why did it like? How is that possible?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, that thing should have spun. Like, there's no way it should have went down. Like, that shouldn't have happened. And you're like,
unintended consequences.
Yeah, and you're like, I just learned something. But, like, the data was all there, and there was something in place where, like, it did a thing because of another thing. And you were like, oh, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You know? But, like, if you don't have sensors and you don't have data, whether you, like, at least your standard setup, you know, especially, like, transmission pressures and things like that, like, even just diagnosing issues or trying to, you know, dial in something, whatever you're trying to do, right?
It just really hit my ear immediately when he said sensors that we don't know we don't know about yet. Yeah, there are sensors out there that we don't know we're going to eventually have on this car that aren't invented yet.
Or we know they're out there, but like we don't have them. But like, hey, it would be cool to put it in there. So run that wiring down. You know, like we'll just cap it off. You know, we'll keep it as a, you know, inside of a plug or whatever. But like, yeah. Like when it does come out or when that person gets done testing it or doing something with it, then you're like, oh, let's try it. You know, like,
and I'm sure, to go full circle, I'm sure Raytheon has a lot of cool sensors that they can do a lot of things with that probably piqued your interest when you saw things that were like, oh man, that on a race car would be interesting.
Yeah, there's
got to be some overlap there. It's all engineering.
There's overlap on the engineering and thought process, right? Like even some of the products you deal with, like I was dealing with mil-spec wiring way before I even knew what mil-spec wiring was, right? Like before I even wired, you know, like started doing like really getting into the wiring side of it or like understanding it, like I already knew that that's what I wanted to use, and I wanted to use mil-spec connectors on the firewall and everything. Like Brett, when he first wired up his car, he just had DT Deutsch connectors, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I really want to do I really want to do a mil-spec connector on this deal. Like I think we did like a 46 pin or something like that, just for the engine.
Mil-spec is military spec.
Military spec, yeah. And a lot of people, downgrade some things on it, but like there's real testing behind a lot of the stuff there. And that's why you use it. Like it's costly, but like clamshell connectors and like just back shells and things like that, like those style connectors are like really good. And they'll last a long time. And they have like salt and corrosion environment testing and things. Like there's all this testing that goes on. And then like you're like, oh my God, well, it's just military. Like it's probably junk, It's like no, like there's a real reason why there's behind that mil spec.
Yeah, it's like where did AN come from?
Yeah,
exactly.
Army Navy.
Army Navy.
Yeah.
From like World War II ships.
And like a 3 it's just all 16ths. They made it so easy. 3 AN just means 3/16. Like that's just the size. 16 is 16/16, so that's 1 inch. Like it's literally like a very easy concept to grasp, and you're like, you can't screw it up. It's not like, oh no, get this 1/2 inch line or whatever, and like, oh, which nuts on that one? What's the thread on that one? It's like, no, it's all the same.
It all kind of trickles down.
Yeah. From like most things, like a lot of like a lot of sensor technology we have and stuff like that is all, trickle down from military.
Yeah, even like NASA's always pointed at for how much stuff came from them. Yeah. Like all electric power tools.
Aluminum foil.
Yeah. Like so much stuff. Like and then you even look at that kind of stuff, like the heat shielding and stuff that they do on that level of engineering. Like there's got to be so much that you could take from them.
Well, data and testing and, just everything. Like it all trickles back, like it's cool. There's a lot to be learned if you open your eyes. I think that's the biggest thing.
And then there's always if we're seeing it, it's outdated.
Yeah.
So like if it's
military and it's really cool, it's way outdated.
Yeah.
Like it's not even close.
Like if you're seeing it right now on the civilian side of things, it's outdated. Like we were talking about that manta ray thing from, was it a Lockheed deal? It was like, it was basically a B-2 underwater.
Yeah. Like,
it's probably already outdated.
For sure. Yeah. If you're seeing it, it's no doubt. If people still but people like, SR-71 Blackbird is still like the fastest. That was from the 60s.
Yeah.
Like imagine, think about TVs from the 60s and then think about your TV now. Like that's the technology gap we're talking about. Like it's not even close. You're not even like in the same ballpark.
And even that too, like you think about like titanium. Yeah. Most of it was
chill
because of like most of the titanium development came because of
almost all. Well, yeah. Well,
that
and like
those programs.
When you think about like Inconel was made, and like there's a new one now too. That's because of I think SpaceX. It's like it's a higher temp metal that's made. It's literally made for exhaust. Like it's made for very high temperatures on like the cones of rockets and stuff like that. But it's like I forgot what it was called, but it's high. It's better than Inconel 625, and Inconel 625 is like that's what you should be building. Very high temperature ranges, swings back and forth. Like that's what you should be building your exhaust out of and stuff like that if you want to be proper. Like when we do 3 stainless material, like it's just cheap and we can get it and it works pretty well. But like when people complain about it cracking and stuff like that, it's like just know that's never what it was intended for. It was never intended for an exhaust. It's just a cheap solution. Like it is what it is. It's going to crack. You cycle it enough, it's going to crack.
And they literally have the same problems that a race car has.
Yeah.
Where it has to be lightweight, has to handle a lot of heat, has to work all the time. Like
that's literally where like mil-spec wiring came from. It was like it needed to be light. Like the slant 32 and slant 16 shielding that's on the side of them is like different thickness shieldings around the cable just for weight. I mean, like that's just what it is.
Yeah, there's so much interesting stuff that comes out of that realm that I really always think about how much I want to see more of it incorporated in race cars. Like I'd like to see, like I would love to talk to like a NASA level engineer, like a SpaceX level engineer, and like have him like talk on a car, like look over a car and like a long-term conversation of like that kind of thing would be so interesting.
I think that, and I'm going to go like off topic a little bit there, but like aerophysicists and like aerodynamics, like I think from F1, like I'm a very avid F1 fan, but like that is one of the biggest advantages is aero. You know, like it, and like all the cars look similar to a point, but like just little bits and pieces, like it's a large gap.
Yeah.
So like I always, you know, like wonder like what's aero doing to our cars and stuff. And like you can go to a wind tunnel and stuff like that, but there's no like engineer, like, you know, physicist that's like, this is just like, this is what you would do. And like I would like to see like him say like, oh, go do this, this, and this, and like you'll see this kind of gain, and like this is where we learned that from.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like a little bit of aero sensors would be interesting too.
Yeah, like that would be pretty killer.
I really like how some of the no prep cars are building wings that are on the rear end though.
I saw that. Did you see the one that's like going through the back glass and like they were screwing it in?
But they don't go to the car chassis. They go to the rear end, and the car body moves independent of the wing.
So I always wonder if that's an advantage or not, directly to the rear end.
I guess the thought is to drive the rear end just into the ground.
But do you get mechanical leverage by driving it to the body and then mechanically leveraging it through the chassis, through the control arm points and stuff? Because like if you have an anti-squat car, you're literally trying to lift the car up and drive the car tire into the ground by just, you know, literally just using mechanical leverage. So like if you have a wing, like probably actually by the time it's probably effective, most of the time an anti-squat car is already at ride height again. You know, like any car that wants to separate a lot, they want it to come back down, you know, by the 8th mile or so and like level out because it's an aero effect.
Yeah, and if if it's separated towards the end of the track, it starts to get sketchy.
Yeah, well, you can, I mean, driveline angle, you know, can be a little wonky and stuff. People do it, you know. I mean, it's not what you want. Maybe people don't really know it's not what you want either.
That's true.
You know, a lot of the time, like a good shock will return back to ride height, you know, after X amount of time because that's how it should be. Like you don't need that much mechanical leverage at that point. You know, anti-squat's really only to get the car moving and get it to not do a wheelie and get it to plant the tire really hard. When you don't need that, you don't need it.
But even when we start talking about shocks, there is the ones that passively do stuff, and then there's the ones that actively do stuff through the ECU. So like,
yeah, air-controlled shocks are a big deal.
Yeah, and that's becoming more of a thing.
Yeah,
now,
but they're custom. Like you can't just go buy an air shock. Not that I'm aware of. Maybe you can.
So
I know that they've been built before.
So you know, you can get a car to separate. For those that don't know, you can get a car to separate with just clicks and fanciness there, or you can force it to separate.
So a lot of the time, the air shocks work by controlling the valving. So you're not actually applying air to separate it. Your control arms, wherever they're set up, and however much anti-squat you have in the chassis and your instant center, right? But like, you're going to want it to be aggressive, so it tries to separate instantly. And really, what you're doing is you're allowing the shock to be really loose to separate really hard, and then you're applying air to close the valving and run like a standard valving or whatever you have it set to.
Yeah.
So then it slows the shock down real hard. Like it's really like it's like extension and then like you're controlling it. Because if you top it out, you have no suspension and like you're just gonna knock the tire. Like unless you have like a really, really, really good track. And most of the time you're still gonna knock the tire if it's a really fast car.
Speaking of air stuff is an interesting one because the Koenigsegg's, they use air for their valves.
Yeah.
Like it's free valve, no cam, they just control it with air. But for people that don't really know, those are Coyote engines.
Yeah.
They're like they're Coyote.
I think they're still 5.4s.
Architecture.
Yeah. I think they're still 4-valve motors.
Okay.
I don't think they've gone to Coyote yet. I think they're still the 4-valve structure. They're their own heads, though.
They're their own heads, but the bottom end is it's their own block too, but it's designed off of
the early ones were just Ford blocks.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Or there was some, you know, like I forgot
their own fancy stuff. But it's like that is like peak engineering.
Yeah.
That it's almost weird to see it work that way too. I guess that comes from it's interesting to see the direction that engineering flows from technology, because to see it from like an OEM car to be that peak technology, not from racing to OEM, is weird.
It's weird just to see a Ford-based engine in like a hypercar or whatever. You know, like you see like your Ford GTs and stuff like that, like your older ones, and like that was badass. But like I don't think you would consider it like a hypercar at that time. You know, like, it was a supercar.
Yeah.
But like the hypercar stuff is like exotic is how I feel about it. Like exotic engine, exotic parts. And that one does have it, but it's still got a Ford-based architecture on the engine. It also runs precision turbos. So I don't know if you knew that, but that was pretty nifty. Maybe, I don't know if they still do. I know earlier ones did, and I think all the way up to like, I don't even know what the other year car was.
They probably run precisions on, I would just assume, on the Hennessy car too. The Venom GT.
I don't know.
They're LS based.
I don't know.
That car is funny too, because like you hear it and you're like, that sounds just like a race car LS. Like it idles just like a race car.
Yeah, you're like, where is the Camaro?
Yeah.
Where is the Camaro?
Exactly. It sounds like a Corvette or something, just like your standard idling LS that you can hear the turbo kind of like.
Yeah, it is weird. It's a cool car though. That seems to be pretty nifty. I'm not a big fan of that guy, but it seems like a pretty cool car.
Yeah. It's cool to see like low production hypercar of any kind.
They're
really
expensive though. They're proud of that price tag.
And it's not a Koenigsegg.
No.
People often ask me, they're like, what's like your end all be all car? And it usually goes back to Koenigsegg.
Yeah. And it's just for his engineering aspect and like his willingness to try crazy things.
They're just so cool.
Yeah.
You know, like there's
everything about them.
Something so cool about that deal.
Yeah. I would want one just because I'd like to support a guy that's still doing it. Like that, I mean, he's still out there like engineering items and like really trying to make, really trying to challenge what's traditional.
He's one of those guys where like, you know, when he starts talking, I'm like, okay, I want to turn this up and try to listen, maybe take some notes.
Every time.
Him and Rimac, Mate, who's the CEO of Bogetti now.
Yeah.
He's always an interesting one to listen to.
Yeah.
Kind of
I haven't
the same
listened
deal.
to him a whole lot. Probably should though.
But to like, you know, start Rimac from nothing and like in 10 years being like the electric car is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Like the electric hypercar. I think did you see it just went 176 miles an hour?
And they've got that cool electric motor too. I think that's with the radial motor. Or is that Koenigsegg? Shit. I don't know. But it's like a very small like radial phase motor. And like it's, you know, like most motors are pretty big and bulky in this, but this is like radial around. And it's like some ungodly power for its size.
Koenigsegg has theirs like in between the transmission and the engine. They have like that like a electric deal.
Cool, because at least it's still using all the drivetrain.
Yeah,
you know, like it's still like most electric hybrid deals or ICE hybrid deals. They have like electric front wheels or whatever, you know, and like ICE.
The problem is like when you start talking about electric hybrid supercars and hypercars like that, they get so heavy.
Yeah.
Like that new BMW M5 just came out and it's hybrid. It's not a hypercar by any means or supercar, but it's 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, it ruins so much of like.
I wonder how much that changed the steering input and feel of that car.
Yeah,
like around the track.
It feels so different because they just came out with the hybrid Porsche too.
Yep.
The 911.
Yeah.
And it's like, how heavy, how different is that car? Porsche, of course, they're kind of in a different realm.
Well, yeah, they're good at it. You know, like they're just they're still very driver input feel oriented. Where I think it's probably an add-on. It's probably pretty good.
I'd imagine they're pretty good at doing things.
Yeah, exactly.
I trust them a little bit more than I trust like Chevy. Chevy to do it.
Yeah, they're like, we put engine here.
Yeah.
Engine go here. Electric go here.
Chevy's like, well, we took what we did on the Volt. It's like, oh, God.
We added another one.
It's like, you know the Chevy Volt.
Yeah.
We all know Chevy. Yeah. Please don't.
We put two of them together.
Please don't talk about the Volt and the Corvette in the same sentence.
Jesus.
We'd prefer if you avoided that.
Yeah, they could really screw it up. Which is a shame. Because they will. That's the problem. Like, I feel like you need to take away their power to screw it up.
And then they have it built in Kentucky.
Electric capital of the world.
Like, I like Kentucky. And they build a great V8.
Yeah.
But maybe
not.
Just
don't.
They're not the guys to build the electric Corvette.
You going after the union like that?
Maybe the UAW in general isn't the guys to build.
What if they had a UAW EV edition?
I'm sure. The
what if it just says
head,
local EV? What if it does?
Sure, the union head would love to add an EV
Well, yeah, because he'd get another bonus off of it.
He would get a bonus.
He'd get a bonus, you know, like
they would fail miserably, and he would get a bonus
for the people.
We were just talking about Lucid. Did you see some of the?
It's a scam. It's a laundering. It's got to be money laundering.
So I made that whole post about it, and some of like when you talk about like, okay, so.
But did people really like? I don't think they got to the point where like how much he was making a year.
But like
a lot of people saw the details.
In 5 years is down 70%. They're
solid.
They delivered 9,000 cars this year and 7,000 last year. Their cars go for $130,000. Their Q1 from last year, their delivered vehicles is up 39%, but like that's only 2,000 cars. Their revenue is $172 million for Q1, and their CEO made $379 million. Yeah. So it's like when you talk about the first stuff, like stock price down, car deliveries 9,000 cars, and then CEO
300, and that's like year like 3, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like year 2 was the same way. Year 1 was like 260 million or something.
And it's like, I get that he's CTO, Chief Technical Officer, but then you're like,
you see who are they funded by?
Man, who owns it? And it's like the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia, Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. And I'm like, huh.
Very confidence inspiring, all of those.
Much of their money came from the state of Arizona wanting them to build a factory. But the breakdown of so the cars sell for 130 grand. The breakdown of his profit per car is 50 grand per car.
Yeah. So what are they building it for?
It's like that is just so sad.
No, it just doesn't make sense. The dollars don't. Yeah. And math's not mathing.
They're good cars. I've driven one. I've ridden in one.
Are they?
It felt great. It was one of the better fit and finish cars that I've been in, where it had like so many features and things.
How are the nut and bolts on the doors?
From my limited time with it,
were they all scratched up? Because like any Tesla I've ever been, anybody that has a Tesla, I'm sorry, if you go open up your door and you go look at the bolts, they had painted bolts, and then they used a ratchet to put on your doors, and then they marred up all your painted bolts, and then they go back and they touch it up, and it looks like they touched it up with like a nail polish. And it just looks absolutely terrible. What's worse than painted bolts is messed up painted bolts.
The parallel to that is that the CEO worked at Tesla for a long time.
Makes sense.
So, but their cars
probably wasn't getting that much money.
Their cars had like a old school Mercedes feel to them, where they had like the windows had like a thing that like, you know, blocks the sun, like you like click it in, like all kinds of like little things like that weren't like hyper important, but when you're in the back, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm in like a, you know, like a Maybach luxury. Where were you at when you did this? I was at the Motor Enclave. They gave me a test drive in one, and then I got to drive it, and it was kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, it was an interesting car.
It wasn't gonna buy one.
No, okay. I wouldn't. Not for 130.
What if it was 60?
For 60, it'd probably be worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have an SUV.
It felt like an SUV in the back.
They have a minivan.
We've talked about this a lot too, with new car prices just being
atrocious,
and not making any sense, and they're just gonna all die on the lot.
Yeah,
I have a strong feeling.
I hope it happens so that the manufacturer gets a real, you know, sense of like what the people really want. But I hate to see that happen for like all the, you know, the people that they employ, because it's not their fault.
Does the manufacturer really ever feel it, or does the taxpayer ever end up feeling it?
Depends how many bailouts we go through.
Yeah,
and I know we're just giving away money right now, you know, so why not?
I know Ford, they only took a loan, they didn't take a bailout.
Yeah.
Everybody loves like pushing that when I'm like, the bailouts of the big three.
Still took it.
And it's like, well, they got a loan.
Still took it.
And 70% of all bailout money has been paid back by now.
At least Ford's vehicles still look good right now.
And they still use a nice V8.
Yeah, GM's really kind of screwed this up lately. Their trucks look great though.
Yeah,
the trucks look way better than what the previous years were.
Do you think that has to do with gender of CEO? Your words, not mine.
Yeah, I think probably, you know, the inclusion of everyone is maybe.
I think Susan something at GM is the CEO, and they got Jim Farley at Ford.
And who was it? Somebody's Ford, one of the juniors or whatever, one of the sons, the third, fifth, eighth, or whatever like that. I think they're in charge of Ford Performance right now, which Ford Performance is doing some pretty cool things. A lot more parts are more available now.
Yeah.
So I think that's going in the right direction too. So I wish more of that would happen just on a performance front, you know.
It would be nice if all of this stuff was just like really like let the aftermarket free in a way, because the aftermarket is like better than it's ever been in like the form of like skill level and like ability
technology,
to make things.
Yeah, just
so if you let them really free with things and just like gave like schematics and everything, the aftermarket would really go crazy. They opened it up,
aftermarket would go pretty wild. I think it would just make everything, because people would buy more cars.
And I've always kind of felt that the OEMs like, oh, like you're not allowed to tune this, but then they'll like slip things out the back door.
There's always a guy. There's always a guy.
I've always felt it was on purpose though, in a way.
Yeah, I mean that's how SCT came about.
Like it was like
Super
a wink,
Trips
wink
tuner or whatever.
Kind
of like that was the guy. Like I think it's Jerry. I think his name was. He maybe I got the story wrong, but I've heard that he was like a Ford engineer or whatever, and like he was the one that was cracking all the code and everything, and then he branched off and started his own. Like he's like the godfather of OEM tuning.
Yeah,
I think his name's Jerry. I'll feel real bad if it's not.
Even like the ZR1 C6. I guess there's a guy that does suspension tuning, and he was the guy that did the suspension tuning. But like if you have a ZR1, you take it to him, and suddenly it's like 10,000 times better because it's electronic suspension, and he like really can set it up.
Do you think he knew this was going to happen, so he like set it up already, and like he just has to go in and like activate it?
Yeah, he had like a back door.
Yeah, he just, he up, down, left, right, and then like, oh, now you've got a cool ZR1.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Because I've heard Kyle Loftus talk about it where he's like, it changes the car completely.
Happens
driving
in 5 minutes.
Dynamics. He probably doesn't have to do that much. I mean, there's not that much you can do if it's electronic.
Does it even have anything that you write to it? It's probably just there already.
I don't know. I don't know how that really works. I didn't know it was that smart. I knew it was electronic because like the CTSVs are also electronic, but I didn't know it was that smart.
Yeah.
You ever see how they do it? They use magnets, and the fluid has heavy metal in it.
And that's how they
control. So they tighten it up with...
Well, I think it's just like a blocks flow, right? Just like makes it harder to flow through.
It stiffens it up or loosens it up, but I guess once you have full control over it...
Yeah, maybe it does really cool things.
Yeah,
maybe it's how quick it does it, too.
Yeah, when and how, and I didn't know that ECUs were that smart at all, though.
Well, then you understand why cars are like $130,000 now. Like, thank God I can control my shock from my computer.
Yeah.
Thank God. That's what I really needed on my minivan. That's what I really needed.
Doesn't everybody want to be able to control their shocks?
That's it,
Like, the American dream.
Yeah. What is it? I was looking at F-150s or whatever because I was driving Sam's truck. We were doing some testing on some brakes and stuff. And very cool truck, but I was like, man, like base model, like it has a lot of features for a base model. Like base model doesn't mean base model as much as I thought it did.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it had backup camera and, like a 8 or 9 inch display and whatever, and like leather seats, which I thought they only came with cloth at that point.
Well, backup cameras are legally mandated.
Yeah. So when you hear base, I don't know. When I hear base model now, I don't think that's kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I haven't really driven much, new vehicles, I guess. But yeah, I was like, it's like $50,000 for like a base model truck. I was like, this is not what a base model truck should cost.
No.
Single cab, short bed.
They talk about those Hiluxes that are like $20,000 overseas that we don't get, of course.
Of course.
But it's like, cool. $20,000 for a new truck would be really nice.
Just like wagons. We don't get wagons here either.
No.
Wagons are I think they're very cool.
It's the master race.
Yeah.
Technically.
Job's got a AMG, I don't know, wagon. It's like matte gray. It's sick. It looks so, like, very useful.
And the Audi RS6.
RS6. Again, can't touch it for like under 160.
They have like wheels that look like they're from like a Urus on them. They're so big, and it's just like, oh, sick.
It looks great.
Yeah.
What do we get for wagons? Volvo.
Nothing. Ford has screwed up for years by not having like a four-door Coyote platform.
Even that new somebody did a rendering of like a Mustang wagon, and I was like, it's not terrible. I'm like, it would probably sell.
It's not a Mach-E.
Somebody said that they did the Mach-E so they could get the carbon credits.
I think so. Ford
That's
is really
why they
good.
named it Mustang, so that the Mustang could get the carbon credits for it. I was like,
Ford is really good.
I'm okay with Mach-E now because of that. You know, like I don't love what it is, but if it gets Mustangs, I'm pretty cool with that.
And then they killed the Lightning name too.
Yeah, they killed the Lightning when they came out with the electronic truck.
That's what I mean. They were like, they had to kill them. They tried to kill the Mustang name. They killed the Mach-E name, and then they killed the Lightning name.
Yeah.
They haven't.
That was a shame.
Yeah.
That truck sucked. God, what a flop.
So bad.
Biggest flop ever.
I think they did it on purpose to be like, look, government, we can't build electric vehicles. Like, you can't make us do this. Look at how bad it is.
What do you think the resale value is on those?
I don't even think the regular sale value.
One? Can you even buy a used one? You probably can for like 10 grand.
But like the problem is they haven't even sold all of their new inventory. So how can the resale value?
Look, it's a home generator. Look, it can power your microwave.
Yeah, you need this. Yeah.
Look at my cool frunk.
So sad. Much big oof on that one.
They really screwed that deal up.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad for like Ford.
I'm glad they
people
just
that
stopped
are
making
die
them.
hard.
I'm glad they just stopped. I think they stopped, right? They canned it.
Well, there's so many sitting there that aren't sold yet. Why would they keep making them?
They should go take them to Alaska and launch them off that really high mountain.
Yeah. Imagine you were that child that had to mine all that lithium and then you're just like, know that it just like didn't sell.
Probably not alive. Gotta look at the facts here. You know,
Mathematically speaking.
lithium's very bad. it's
and
terrible
they don't have
to mine
gloves or anything.
No, they're just going at it.
Yeah.
You know? And when
mining for lithium's not for everyone.
No, it's like diamonds.
Yeah.
You know, you start very young, you don't make it very old.
Well, now we switch to a lot of lab-grown diamonds, but there's not really a ability for lab-grown lithium from what I can understand.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's a market
Need
for
more cobalt too, you know. You might as well add that one to the mix.
A lot of that's in Australia at least. And apparently most of the cobalt is in the US desert, but there's not enough child labor force in the US to get it.
Yeah, it's not profitable.
Yeah, it's not profitable. Like there's not a child labor force in the US to get the cobalt out that we need.
Just need to look the other way. It'll become a superpower again.
Yeah. Like my phone needs cobalt. I don't know who's gonna get it.
Maybe we can do the reverse of China, where they just name their, place in China USA. That way you can say it's made in USA. What if we just name a spot in USA called China, and you're like, oh yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
They can just do whatever. They can pollute for the next 150 years. No
It'll
big
be
deal.
fine.
Yeah.
I know.
Modern problems, modern solutions.
Like Australia, they mine their coal, sell it to China, and then China sells them back renewable like energy stuff. Like
it's probably for less than what they sold it to them for too.
Oh, they're getting hosed completely. And then China just uses the coal, and they have to put up like windmills and solar. And it's like, well, somebody's using the coal anyways. It might as well be you guys.
Did you? And speaking of energy, there's this company that's out of I'm very surprised. El Segundo, that's making small nuclear generators. Dude, it looks. I'm here for it.
I don't know where I've
And
said
they're
this
doing
before.
nuclear fission, not fusion, which is like ultimate sketch factor. Because fission's the one where like it has the chain reaction, and like if you don't cool it, it's one of the better ones, or it's one of the. That's what a bomb is. It's a fission bomb, right? Like that's where you can't really stop the reaction, but they found a way to stop the reaction, and like it's in like a building, like it's in like almost like a small container, and like it's supposed to do like 1 or 2 megawatt, or I don't forgot what it was.
That would
it's
be
like
fantastic.
Hugely impressive.
If somebody came door to door selling nuclear instead of solar, I'd not close the door on them. I would talk to them. I'm interested.
Yeah.
If I could have a small reactor, I would bury it in my yard too, if that's what they needed.
Especially when it's done.
Or like, a little concrete house of some kind and just park it in the back. I'll even supply my neighbors if I have to. If my whole neighborhood wants to chip in.
Yeah, nuclear, you would definitely be supplying. You wouldn't have to work. Let me tell you that.
Well, they make it illegal in Florida to sell your electric back to the grid.
Yeah.
The electric company's like, sorry.
Yeah.
Because they don't want people putting enough to make profit.
Yeah, correct. It looks good, but we'd have to lower our costs, so we're not going to do that.
Exactly.
By the way, it went up again this month, so, you know, tough luck.
It goes up every month.
Yeah.
It's kind of that perpetual.
Maybe we'll try again, you know, next year and see what happens. Or the next time they redo it every 3 months.
And then you think about nuclear and it's like, oh, wait, it takes like 8 years to be up and running. So if we're not doing it now.
Well, that's what they're trying to do 8 units a year. Or no, 20 units a year. And like they're trying to make like production style energy. And like these will go, you can like group them in like pods of 4 and stuff too. And like it's like military purposes and things like that.
I just saw this study earlier today, and it was like how to get women more interested in nuclear power. And it was like a poll, and it was like they don't care, they're not interested, and they're like no opinion. Like, I was like, I don't think I'm
really invested fully too. I watched this like hour and a half long documentary on it, and it wasn't even like it was YouTube, but like probably go search for it on YouTube. It was actually really good.
Yeah,
and, like, and the guys came from SpaceX. So these guys, they left. They were like lead engineers, and they all created this group. Can't believe they did in El Segundo, California, but
yeah, that
doesn't seem like the right place.
But you look at like the ships. All of our Navy pretty much is all nuclear ships. Even like the submarines,
subs,
and they're like, it'll last for like 30 years.
And that's probably old technology in nuclear.
Yeah,
like I don't like this stuff that they're doing seems very interesting because of the way like they're using carbon to like close off the reaction. So like at that point they're able to like there's no like and they're using helium to extract the heat. And like if there was a overreaction or something like that, like the helium doesn't actually like carry or like carries very few amount of radiation. Yeah. And like you can release in the atmosphere and like it's no cause.
And everybody likes to think about the disasters. You know, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl,
of course.
There was a couple mishaps where we misplaced a few in Japan.
No big deal.
That was an accident.
It's not here.
That was some guy, Truman, did that.
Yeah, no big deal. We don't talk about that.
Nothing.
It's fine.
But people like to talk about the accidents, but they weren't that bad.
No.
They really were pretty minor.
If you look at what it provided versus what it hurt, it's probably way better than cars.
Yeah.
Or jets.
And
easily anything's most better than jets.
Electric cars become feasible on a nuclear powered world. I think they become a lot more reasonable.
Maybe I don't want nuclear power now. I just don't want an electric vehicle. You know, I'll stick to my electric tools. That's about it.
So I've often wondered if, you know, Elon Musk's cars they're like kind of you can drop the battery right out.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered if he like has some, maybe this is my tinfoil hat conspiracy brain, of like push everybody to electric and then be like, oh, actually, we could just swap all of our batteries out with this new thing that I already had, but I just wanted to like cause the car market to try to catch up and then like tank everybody else by being like, oh, just swap out your old ones with this.
Yeah, probably. Or swap your body.
Yeah, but the battery, because like the motors aren't going to get much better.
No.
They're pretty, like they're pretty good already.
That new rotary style was pretty sweet.
But like
yeah,
for the most part, those motors will go forever.
Correct.
It's just the battery technology that's way
I mean, the motors definitely have wear and stuff, and they go out, but not. I don't think it's as quick as the battery stuff.
Yeah, the battery stuff seems 5-10 years behind the motor stuff.
And it always has been. I mean, motors have always been way better than batteries.
Yeah.
You know,
it's just one moving part. And the motors have been around since.
Yeah, now with brushless stuff, like there's even less wear, you know, like it's just all gotten better.
Yeah. I would be all for a hot swap battery system would be cool. You like pull over something and like drops it out and just like.
They did that with a semi. Did you see that?
Yeah, they hot swap them out.
Yeah, there's a company that, you know, you tag it into your trailer. So like it goes in between your trailer and your truck, and it like provides like an extra like 400 miles of range or something like that. And then you pull up and you just drop that section off, and then you pick up another one if you want it, or you just don't.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was I don't know, I saw it somewhere.
I like that.
Rabbit holes of YouTube.
I like that company, Nikolai, that was... that had their one going downhill.
Scammed all their buyers.
I never invested, unfortunately.
Well, you would have needed to know when to get out and when to invest before.
I think when everybody heard to invest was when you actually were supposed to get out.
For sure.
So that
I think it was about a day after that.
Yeah. Right as everybody was investing in.
Yeah.
That was when you were supposed to get out.
Yeah.
So
and then right after you got out, you needed to short it by quite a bit.
That's true. I forgot.
Because you got to win on the up and the down.
You could ride it down.
That's right.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah. You could take your winnings and put them back in.
Yes. And that's how you get a helicopter.
That's how you get a military-grade helicopter. All right, we're going to end it off there. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Jim. That was really fun. I actually want to do a dedicated video. Like I've been doing a couple dedicated videos on my other channel on things. And one of them, I wanted to do like a deep dive on a couple of electric car companies that have done some interesting things. Lucid, I think, has a lot of different... They could have their own dedicated video with like some good research. Nikolai has their own... dedicated things that could be interesting, and I think Rimac also has their own dedicated things.
And we'll also be able to see if you get shadow banned because of it.
You think so? Yeah, maybe.
You probably won't get shadow banned. You probably get fully banned. Probably just just gonna happen like that, you know.
Well, guys, follow Jim, JFab. He works at TBM. If you have any brake questions and you reach out to TBM, you'll probably end up talking to Jim, maybe.
Yeah, me, Jason,
that's
Rika.
true.
Yeah, Jason does a lot of the technical questions and stuff like that. Very knowledgeable. But, like, all the guys, like, it doesn't matter who you called. Like, they'll help you out either way.
And they will actually, like, if you have a weird problem, they will actually help you instead of probably tell you, sorry, we don't do that.
I mean, we've, like, not that we do this, but like we've, like if it's a certain issue that's come across, like we'll find a solution for it. I think that's the bigger thing.
Because a lot of companies will just be like, yeah, sorry, we don't do that. Yeah. And it's like, okay, is that, wait, do I hang up now?
Yeah, exactly. Or like they'll be like, hey, this brake will fit this model if you made this modification to it. And you're like, oh yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Like here, and then like a week later, like, oh, here's another bracket that came out, and now your brakes will fit this model year.
Yeah.
Like it's all about the customer at that point, and I think just getting them the best product. So.
And you can pick them up in Bradenton to save on shipping because brakes are often heavy.
Because it's manufactured in Bradenton.
Yes. Yeah. That is awesome. So good deal. Thanks for coming on. That was fun. We'll see you guys next time.
See you.